Chapter 1249. After 10,000 years, he finally saw Iran again. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden was a prodigy. In a mere 10,000 years, she had advanced to the consummate level of the sun-moon tier. The greatest benefit of this was that her appearance hadn't aged at all. She was still as beautiful as she had been in the past. She had been the #1 beauty of the lower realm in the past. Even in the immortal realm, she could still be considered a stunning beauty. Otherwise, how could the heir of the Xie clan have fallen in love with her at first sight? However, a beauty like her was no longer unique. If that weren't the case, Xie Donglai wouldn't have had to make a move. More powerful figures would have taken her as their mistress. For men, wasn't cultivating to become stronger for the sake of power and beauty? After being stared at for too long, the heavenly phoenix divine maiden actually sensed something and walked in Ling Han's direction. Beside the heavenly phoenix divine maiden was an ordinary-looking woman. She discovered that the heavenly phoenix divine maiden's behavior was a little strange, and couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong?" The heavenly phoenix divine maiden smiled faintly, shook her head and said, "It's nothing." Her heart shuddered. Had the Xie clan found her so quickly? Ling Han watched as this small group left the camp, and then hurriedly followed. "Brat, don't forget Grandpa Ginseng when you're wooing girls." The old Ginseng caught up. He loved beauties the most. Rabbit scoffed and said, "Useless." However, he also chased after them because the direction that Ling Han had taken was the depths of the passageway between the two realms. He was still hoping that Ling Han would take revenge for him. The three followed this small group. The regulations of heaven and earth here were too strange, and it was very difficult for them to travel. After a day, they actually only walked a little over 500 kilometers. This was unimaginable in the outside world. At night, this group stopped to set up camp. They wanted to rest for the night and maintain their peak condition. Meanwhile, Ling Han and the others stopped even further away, and also rested for the night. The old Ginseng wasn't willing to stay put, and wanted to attack the women's camp at night. In the end, he was beaten up by Ling Han. What a joke! This time, it was clear that his wife was inside, so how could he tolerate the old Ginseng peeping? "Brat, you're too disloyal. Can you even pick up so many girls? You're eating the meat, but you're not even leaving some soup for Grandpa Ginseng." The old Ginseng was flustered and exasperated. "If you keep talking nonsense, I'll cook you," Ling Han threatened. Okay. Rabbit began to drool. Uncle Rabbit has already prepared firewood. He threw out a large pile of charcoal, and it was not an ordinary one, but made of red sandalwood. It was a good fire source for alchemy and artifact forging. It was such a luxury to use it to cook and eat. The old Ginseng was dumbfounded. He pointed at the rabbit and said, "What a good brother, Rabbit. You were still calling Grandpa Ginseng brother during the day. So it turns out that you've been thinking about Grandpa Ginseng's meat all along. Radish, if you don't enter hell, who will? Contribute your flesh and blood to benefit the masses. Uncle Rabbit will always remember you," Rabbit said, pretending to be serious. At the same time, it held its chin and said, "Little Han, do you think we should wash this old Ginseng king?" "Wash your sister." The old Ginseng hurriedly hid far away. He was really afraid that these two fellows would get into a frenzy and chop him into pieces. Ling Han was not in the mood to pay attention to these two buffoons. Instead, he was thinking about how to strike up a conversation with the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. The next day, the army broke camp and set out, traveling another 500 or so kilometers. Just like that, after 4 days, they could be considered to have entered deep into the two-realm battlefield. The environment had become increasingly harsh. Not only was the spiritual chi barren, but the conflict of regulations had also become more and more obvious. In some places, the regulations of the immortal realm were stronger, while in other places, the regulations of the netherworld were stronger. The result of this was that one netherworld and one immortal should clearly have the same level of strength, but if they fought in this place, it would be the elites of the netherworld who were more powerful. And if it was another place, it would be the elites of the immortal realm who were more powerful. Thus, if they fought in this place, it was also very important to choose a suitable location. Otherwise, it was possible that they would win but lose, and it was possible that they would be able to turn the tables. And on this day, the Purple Moon Army at the front finally encountered an army from the Netherworld. The other party was also a small army, and when they encountered each other, they only experienced a short standoff before immediately starting a great battle. This was the kind of opportunity. Ling Han immediately charged out, and charged toward that Netherworld army. When encountering beings from the Netherworld, everyone had the responsibility to attack, and after forming a friendship through battle, it would become easier to find the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden to speak alone. The beings of the Netherworld were clearly different from those of the Immortal Realm. They were always shrouded in an evil and sinister aura, and it could be seen with a single glance. If the Immortal Realm was Yang, then the Netherworld was Yin. If the Immortal Realm was fire, then the Netherworld was water, just like the two sides of a piece of paper. The difference was practically carved into their bones, and it could not be erased no matter what. This Netherworld army was clearly all in human form, but some had horns and some had tails. Because of the evil aura shrouding them, they were completely different from the human forms that demonic beasts of the Immortal Realm had taken. Most of them used spears, and there were occasionally some who used swords and sabers. Their battle prowess ranged from the Mountain River tier to the Sun Moon tier. The Purple Moon Army also had this kind of strength. Thus, once they started fighting, it became a fierce battle. When Ling Han arrived, he didn't say anything and directly attacked. He didn't use the Divine Demon Sword either. He simply waved his hands and punched out violently. Although he didn't use his most powerful technique, he had already cultivated a sliver of the might of heavenly tribulation, so each of his punches naturally contained supreme might. If his punches were weaker than his, they would really be wounded if they were grazed, and they would die if they were touched. He turned into a killing machine, and he could basically kill one with each punch. He stored the corpses into the Black Tower. These corpses could be used to exchange for merit points, so there was naturally no reason for him not to use them. After killing a dozen or so Netherworld beings, he finally attracted the attention of an elite. A Netherworld elite dressed in full armor targeted him, and he waved a spear to attack him. Humph! With a phoenix cry, the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden also rushed over. Two phoenix wings that were 50 kilometers long spread out behind her, and they were burning with divine flames. With a single flap, they could burn 500 kilometers. The phoenix wings shot out tens of thousands of blazing feathers, which shot toward the Netherworld elite. "I'll stay here, go somewhere else," the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden said. "TSK, does this count as having telepathy? She knows to protect her husband just like that?" Ling Han laughed heartily, and didn't try to show off. Instead, he leaped into the air and charged toward the other Netherworld beings. Good steel should be used on the edge of the blade. His efficiency in slaughtering low-level Sun Moon tier elites was far too high. With his help, the low-level Sun Moon tier elites of the Netherworld army were quickly slaughtered, and only 7 consummate level elites were left. They didn't continue fighting, and quickly retreated. The Purple Moon army chased for a while, but consummate level Sun Moon tier elites weren't easy to kill. In the end, they only managed to severely wound one person and didn't manage to kill another. "Little brother, thank you." The army of women counted their losses and then expressed their gratitude to Ling Han. "Fighting against the Netherworld is everyone's responsibility," Ling Han said. Then he turned to the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden and said, "Miss, thank you for your help." Chapter 1250. "Have we met before?" the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden asked in surprise. His appearance was very unfamiliar, but his eyes gave her a very familiar feeling, causing a ripple in her heart that was already as calm as an ancient well. As expected of his wife, she had feelings for him. Ling Han smiled and said, "That shouldn't be possible." "Oh, that's right, handsome. What's your name?" There were many girls in the army of women, and they were all very bold, casting flirtatious glances at Ling Han. Ling Han glanced at the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden and said, "Ling Han." The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice, "Big Sister Heavenly Phoenix, what's wrong?" A few women approached the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. "Nothing." The heavenly phoenix divine maiden shook her head. These were probably just two people with the same name. Her Ling Han should have died in the lower realm long ago. Everyone, I have many pills here that can cure all diseases. Ling Han took out some pills, deciding to win over the hearts of the people. It was clear that the heavenly phoenix divine maiden was going to stay in the Purple Moon Army for a period of time. Moreover, the Purple Moon Army discriminated against men. Thus, Ling Han wanted to build a good relationship with these female soldiers and asked them to take care of him. The women were all overjoyed. The most precious thing in the world of martial art was alchemical pills. In terms of price, they couldn't compare to god tools, but because they were consumables, they were definitely the most expensive in the immortal realm. Ling Han was actually giving away so many pills. This was practically extravagant to the point of squandering. It's fine, I'm just an alchemist. Pills are a piece of cake, Ling Han said with a smile. Hearing this, everyone was even more shocked. Alchemists had a very high status. Alchemists were also divided into 20 minor levels, corresponding to martial art, and if alchemy and martial art were equal, then alchemists would definitely be more awesome. This was decided by demand. Many women's eyes lit up. The world of martial art was cruel. Although cultivators were glamorous, who knew if there would be a tomorrow? Who knew when they would die? Meanwhile, alchemists were stable. As long as they didn't actively interfere in the grievances of cultivators, their status was high, and they would only be begged by others. Thus, if she wanted to marry someone, an alchemist was definitely the best candidate. Grandmaster Ling, what level alchemist are you? These maidens all asked. It's barely at the 8th rank, Ling Han said with a smile. In order to get closer to his wife, he was going all out. When he said this, it wasn't just the young maidens who were infatuated with him. Even many old maidens at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier were tempted, and their eyes were filled with excitement as they looked at Ling Han. It was as if they could eat him alive. This is definitely a rich husband. However, Ling Han was the only one who had said that he was a level 8 alchemist. Whether it was true or not was naturally not something that could be determined by a single sentence from the other party. Ling Han merely wanted them to attach importance to him, so he took the opportunity to request to travel with the Purple Moon Army. That way, they would be able to take care of each other. After all, he was an alchemist, and his battle prowess was very weak. The Purple Moon Army's campsite didn't allow men to enter, but that didn't mean that all the women in the army hated men. In fact, most of them were normal, and a small portion of them were even licentious. Trying to make a living here, one could lose their life at any time, and the affairs between men and women could relieve the pressure to a large extent. Thus, if it weren't for the Purple Moon Divine Maiden's military rule, it was likely that the Purple Moon Army would have long since become a brothel. Ling Han was an alchemist, so he naturally caused many young maidens to be attracted to him. This made Ling Han feel that he had gone overboard. However, for the sake of the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, he still opened his cauldron and concocted some alchemical pills. For example, divine pills below level 5 could be concocted within a day, and the majority of this army was at the Mountain River tier. Once these alchemical pills were distributed, Ling Han's status in the army naturally skyrocketed. Though there were still some who didn't believe that he was a level 8 alchemist at such a young age, there was no doubt that he was at least a level 4 alchemist. But even a level 4 alchemist was awesome enough, because Ling Han was too young. He had already become a level 4 alchemist at such a young age, so how difficult would it be for him to become a level 5, level 6, or even level 8 alchemist in the future? Thus, after a few days of interaction, at least 90% of the maidens were attracted to Ling Han. When they had nothing to do, they liked to run to his tent and make eyes at him. Little sister Heavenly Phoenix, help me deliver this letter to Grandmaster Ling. In a small forest, the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden was pulled away by a middle-aged woman. The latter handed her a letter. She couldn't help but be surprised. This woman was called Zhu Liyun, and she was a good friend she had made in the Purple Moon Army. Her cultivation level was the same as her, but she was much older. She was already over 1,800,000 years old. Thus, even with the lifespan of a cultivator at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier, she was already middle-aged. Big Sister Yun, Don't tell me that you've also fallen in love with that person? The heavenly phoenix divine maiden asked with a smile. A shy smile spread across Zhu Liyun's face, and she said, "Even you are making fun of me." The heavenly phoenix divine maiden couldn't help but laugh at this middle-aged woman's bashfulness, and she asked, "Why didn't you deliver the letter yourself?" "I'm shy," Zhu Liyun said bashfully. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden shook her head and said, "That person might not be a level 8 alchemist. Moreover," she didn't want to say it directly, but Ling Han was too young. Why would he accept a middle-aged woman? With so many young and beautiful girls throwing themselves at him, there was absolutely no need for him to choose Zhu Liyun. Her appearance was far too ordinary. "Are you worried that I'm not beautiful enough?" Zhu Liyun smiled confidently and said, "Looks can't be eaten. Moreover, I'm at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier, and there's a very high chance that I'll break through to the heavenly body tier in the future. If he's smart, he'll know that marrying me is the most beneficial thing for him." The heavenly phoenix divine maiden couldn't help but shake her head in her mind. This close friend of hers wasn't truly in love with Ling Han. Rather, she was in love with his identity as an alchemist. She said, "Fine, I'll deliver the letter on behalf of Big Sister Yun. Remember to put in some good words for me." Zhu Liyun hurriedly pulled on the heavenly phoenix divine maiden and said, "You're so beautiful, so all men will listen to you." These words caused the heavenly phoenix divine maiden to frown slightly, and a hint of displeasure appeared on her face. "Io, look at what Big Sister is saying. You've made Big Sister unhappy," Zhu Liyun hurriedly said. "Big Sister didn't mean it, so please don't take it to heart." Only then did the heavenly phoenix divine maiden nod and say, "I'll deliver the letter to Big Sister." She directly arrived in front of Ling Han's tent and asked, "Is Grandmaster Ling in?" "Yes." Ling Han immediately came out of his tent when he heard this voice. Although he had charmed a large group of women, the heavenly phoenix divine maiden wasn't one of them. Moreover, she had deliberately kept her distance from him, so he hadn't found a chance to be alone with her. Now, the chance had finally come. Seeing Ling Han's burning gaze on her, the heavenly phoenix divine maiden couldn't help but show a hint of displeasure. However, when she recalled that she had been entrusted to do this, she still handed over the letter in her hand and said, "A good sister of mine asked me to deliver this to you. She's a shy person, so she was too embarrassed to give it to you in person." Love letter? Ling Han could guess with a single glance, and his expression involuntarily became strange. "Wife? Oh, wife? You're actually delivering a love letter for another woman? What are you doing?" Chapter 1252. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden stayed for a long time before leaving. She knew a great many of Ling Han's secrets, but she still did not know about the existence of the Black Tower. Because there were too many people here, it was too complicated. Ling Han would only bring her into the Black Tower when the two of them were absolutely alone. Moreover, once they entered the army, they couldn't easily leave. They had to accumulate enough merit points. Thus, their current focus was on fighting netherworld beings. Moreover, the army emphasized teamwork. Thus, it was useless even if Ling Han gave her the corpses of netherworld beings in the Black Tower. They had to be divided equally among everyone. This was also why the army was safe, but the accumulation of merit points was slow. They didn't emphasize individual heroism and instead placed teamwork first. Thus, Ling Han had to wait until the heavenly phoenix divine maiden retired before he could win her heart. When the heaven phoenix divine maiden returned, Zhu Liyun immediately asked nervously, "Sister, what did he say?" There was a hint of a young and inexperienced girl in her voice. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden couldn't help but feel guilty. She could say that Ling Han was actually the man she was destined to be with, and they only met again after 10,000 years. At first, she was delivering a love letter on behalf of a close friend, but in the end, she had hooked up with him. "This," she muttered. Zhu Liyun's expression changed and she said, "Did you give the letter to Grandmaster Ling or not?" "Big Sister Yun, he's not suitable for you. Forget him," the heavenly phoenix divine maiden advised. Zhu Liyun didn't speak. She stared at her for a while and then said, "Don't tell me you've fallen in love with him?" That was not wrong, But she was a whole 10,000 years too early. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden couldn't explain and could only look on speechlessly. Heavenly phoenix divine maiden. Zhu Liyun was furious. She pointed at the heavenly phoenix divine maiden and said, "You bitch, I treat you like a sister, and this is how you repay me. You even steal your own sister's man. Why don't you go die?" The heavenly phoenix divine maiden also looked angry and said, "Setting aside whether I interfered or not, do you think Ling Han will definitely fall in love with you?" "Why not?" Zhu Liyun said loudly. "I'm at the consummate level of the Sun Moon tier, and he's only a mere level 4 or 5 alchemist. To be honest, he's actually trying to climb up my social ladder, and I didn't even look down on him. What does he have to be unhappy about? Auntie, you're such a narcissist." Now, the heavenly phoenix divine maiden naturally knew that Ling Han couldn't possibly be lying. He was a genuine level 8 alchemist, so cultivators at the consummate level of the Sun Moon tier were really nothing in front of him. At the very least, they would have to bow down to him. First of all, you don't have good looks. Second, you're old. Third, your status is lower. What right do you have to say that Ling Han is a social climber? She originally felt that she had let Zhu Liyun down, but when she heard what Zhu Liyun had said, she felt annoyed and swept away that bit of guilt. She did not owe him anything in the first place. "Bitch, let's make a clean break from now on." Zhu Liyun swung her arm and left. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden shook her head. This was the only friend she had made after entering the army camp. Unfortunately, she couldn't withstand the slightest test. Speaking of which, Zhu Liyun naturally wouldn't give up. She immediately went to look for Ling Han. Since the heavenly phoenix divine maiden couldn't convey her thoughts on her behalf, she naturally could only thicken her skin and do it herself. In truth, it wasn't that she was thin-skinned previously, but rather that she wanted to give Ling Han the impression that she was reserved. However, how could Ling Han possibly be interested in her? Even a seductive beauty like Lin Yuqi couldn't move him, let alone this kind of old woman with no good looks at all. More importantly, they didn't know each other at all, okay? After being politely but firmly rejected by Ling Han, Zhu Liyun returned to her own tent with a livid expression. Her expression was icy, and she said resentfully, "Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, I had thought that you were pretty and might have some powerful connections, so I wanted to befriend you. I didn't think that you would steal the man of my dreams. Humph, since the Xie clan is looking for you, I'll lend them a hand. Also, that damn man made it sound so nice, saying that he already has a woman he loves, and we're not suitable. Pay, isn't it because that bitch is better than me? You dare to humiliate me like this? Humph, when the people of the Xie clan come, they'll kill you as well. You're only a level 4 or level 5 alchemist, yet you dare to be so arrogant? Humph. She released a bird that was only the size of a bee. This was a hummingbird, and although it didn't have any offensive abilities, its advantage lay in its speed. In fact, it could even rival heavenly body tier elites. This was also something that she had caught by chance, and she had trained it. Now, it had become her communication tool. She was a veteran Sun Moon tier elite, and her merit points were so high that she could have long since retired dozens of times. However, she had always stayed in the Purple Moon Army because it was safer to travel with the army. Moreover, her merit points could be used to purchase alchemical pills, god tools, and so on. When she had first entered the two-realm battlefield, she had only been at the low extreme of the Sun Moon tier. Now, however, she was at the consummate level. This was because she had exchanged for a large number of alchemical pills. Of course, this was also because she had extraordinary talent in martial art. Otherwise, alchemical pills alone wouldn't have been enough. After so many years, she had naturally built up a considerable network of connections in the Purple Moon Army. Now that she was using the hummingbird to transmit information, it wouldn't be long before the news reached the ears of the Xie clan. At most, in 2 months, the people of the Xie clan would appear here. We're waiting for a good show. With Ling Han buying the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden's support, her reputation in the Purple Moon Army instantly skyrocketed. Everyone knew that the reason why Ling Han was so generous was because he wanted to woo the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. He wanted to buy them over to be his lobbyists. In the next few days, the Purple Moon Army encountered a few more netherworld beings, and they won all of their battles. Ling Han contributed a large number of explosive thunder pills to the Purple Moon Army. Not to mention the increase of 1 star of battle prowess, the increase of 1 star of battle prowess of the entire army was extremely terrifying. However, their consecutive victories also provoked the netherworld, and they sent out an even more powerful army to search for them. This was an army composed entirely of elites at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier, and there were as many as 50 of them. This was an unstoppable force, and the Purple Moon Army didn't dare to oppose it at all. They immediately chose to retreat. The purpose of their expedition was firstly to kill some netherworld beings, and secondly to search for realm spirit stones. By now, they had killed many enemies, yet they hadn't found a single realm spirit stone. This disappointed everyone. Since they had already attracted the attention of the powerhouses, the female soldiers decided to return to the barracks directly and come out after a period of time. In any case, Ling Han couldn't join the Purple Moon Army. Thus, he didn't plan to return with the army of women. He was all alone, and he also had the Black Tower to hide in. Thus, the dangerous two-realm battlefield was nothing to him. He wanted to kill even more netherworld beings and accumulate merit points. This would allow him to exchange for godly metal. In addition, if he could pick up some realm spirit stones, then he would be rich. He could exchange them for a vast amount of godly metal. Raising the quality of the divine demon sword had already become an extremely important task for Ling Han, second only to raising his own power. He decided to venture deeper into the two-realm battlefield and kill even more netherworld beings. Chapter 1253. The old ginseng and rabbit supported Ling Han's decision to enter the depths of the two-realm battlefield. They were still hoping that Ling Han would beat up the netherworld elites and stand up for them. In this battlefield, there were usually Mountain River tier and Sun Moon tier cultivators. Heavenly Body tier cultivators basically wouldn't appear. Once they did, it meant that the scale of the battle was about to increase. Though the two realms had clashed, there hadn't been any major battles in recent years. They were carefully controlled within a controllable range. On the other hand, whether it was the elites of the immortal realm or the netherworld, it was relatively dangerous to venture deep into the other's territory because the regulations of heaven and earth were different, which would cause the battle prowess of the elites to drop greatly. They could only use power and couldn't use regulations. In fact, their power might even be suppressed, and the higher their cultivation level, the greater the suppression. Just like Ling Han now. His power was very strong, but because of the restrictions of his cultivation level, he couldn't comprehend too high-level regulations. His power clearly surpassed 6 stars, but his battle prowess could only surpass 6 stars. Because as long as the opponent's power was similar to his, but they had grasped higher regulations of heaven and earth, they could make up for their lack of martial arts techniques, and could even use martial arts techniques to suppress him. After all, power was only a part of battle prowess. If an elite of the high extreme of the heavenly body tier from the immortal realm went to the netherworld, perhaps their battle prowess would drop to the medium extreme or even the low extreme. That was really too dangerous. Precisely because of this, the elites of the two realms didn't dare to act recklessly. Usually, they would guard one end of the passageway and kill every elite that came. It was easy and enjoyable. But for Ling Han, his forte was power, and his cultivation level was still low, so the suppression of the regulations of the netherworld wasn't obvious. Thus, even if he entered the netherworld, he would be very little affected. Moreover, he had refined the essence of a demon master. Though it was only a small portion, demon masters represented the strongest power of the netherworld. As long as he channeled demonic chi, he naturally wouldn't be suppressed by the heaven and earth of the netherworld. This was a huge advantage. Ling Han walked in the two-realm battlefield. He was adapting to the continuously changing regulations here, trying his best to integrate himself into the regulations of the two realms. He was equivalent to cultivating the regulations of both realms, though the level was still relatively low. However, because his cultivation level was also relatively low, it was just right. Another 10 days later, Ling Han had completely adapted to this place. He was like a fish in water. Here, regardless of whether they were from the netherworld or the immortal realm, they would all be suppressed to a certain extent. However, Ling Han was not affected at all, and he could still fight at full strength. However, they hadn't been able to find a single realm spirit stone even after a dozen or so days. This made the old ginseng and rabbit extremely displeased. "Too stingy," the old ginseng grumbled. He took out a doo-doo and wiped his forehead, as if he was tired. "If I had known that all this would have been for nothing, I would have gone back to change clothes for those girls. Even that underworld brat hasn't arrived yet," the rabbit said angrily, its two red eyes radiating a cold light. Ling Han sat down and planned to eat something. Even in a place like this, he still couldn't change his foodie habits. He started a fire, took out the demonic beast meat, and placed it into the pot. Then, he added in the nourishing divine medicine. Very soon, a fragrant aroma wafted out. He was a little rueful. He couldn't hunt demonic beasts here. One bite meant one bite less. What should he do in the future? Add another egg. I've heard that eggs are very nourishing. The rabbit held an egg with its claws, and was about to throw it into the pot. "Grandpa Ginseng likes it." The old ginseng hurriedly waved his arms. "Before Grandpa Ginseng achieved his Tao, I was almost harmed by the eagle and rabbit. Now I want revenge." He howled. "Do you believe that Grandpa Rabbit will eat you?" the rabbit said fiercely. This old ginseng was actually mocking him again. Ling Han punched out. This rabbit was actually using an egg that he had sunned to cook in the pot. "Ah!" the rabbit screamed, causing the old ginseng to laugh proudly. Very soon, the nourishing meat soup was cooked. The three of them hurriedly began to eat. The old ginseng had also been led astray. He hadn't tasted good before, but now he had become a foodie, and his appetite was very big. "Brat, what kind of egg is this? It seems to be very impressive." The rabbit kicked the egg, unwilling to give up its evil desire to eat it. "Bird egg," Ling Han replied, and then put the egg behind him to prevent it from being kicked by the rabbit. If so, he could only cook it in the pot. "Good bird or bad bird?" the old ginseng deliberately provoked. He knew that the rabbit hated birds the most, and had often hunted him before he had achieved his Tao. The rabbit's expression became ugly. Ling Han was just about to speak, but his heart trembled. He said, "There's an enemy." The rabbit and the old ginseng hurriedly dug into the ground, and unceremoniously threw the pot to Ling Han. If there was a problem, of course there would be someone higher up to handle it. It was unrealistic to want these two to risk their lives. Ling Han said in his mind. His eyes, however, were fixed on a nearby hill. There, a tall and slender figure had appeared. His hands were clasped behind his back, and his robes fluttered lightly in the breeze. A creature of the netherworld. With a single glance, one could tell that his aura was completely different. That kind of eeriness, that kind of evil, was practically as obvious as a sun. But what surprised Ling Han was that apart from this aura, this person was completely no different from a human. He only looked to be in his 20s, and was extremely handsome. Moreover, he was a super handsome man. "It's him!" Rabbit and the old ginseng raised their hands at the same time to point at that person. "Little Han, it's this bastard." Was this the creature of the netherworld that had chased after Rabbit and the old ginseng, wanting to turn them into rabbit ginseng soup? Chop him up. Grandpa Ginseng is going to break his meat diet today and eat netherworld human barbecued pork buns. Rabbit and the old ginseng both shouted. However, they both retreated even further and didn't have the slightest intention of charging forward to fight to the death. The young man from the netherworld leaped and landed 30 meters in front of Ling Han. A powerful aura radiated from him. He was clearly also at the Sun-Moon tier, yet he gave Ling Han a completely different feeling. The immortal realm possessed the power of creation, while the netherworld possessed the power of destruction. These were two opposing regulations of heaven and earth. "Get out of my way," the youth rebuked in a low voice. "You don't have the right to die at my hands." "How arrogant!" Ling Han laughed and said, "Perhaps you do have the right to die at my hands." The youth's eyes twitched. Boom! 2 balls of netherworld fire flashed in his eyes, filled with a frightening might. It was as if they could melt godly metal no matter how high level it was. Ling Han's fighting spirit sword. This was a king tier of the netherworld. A pretty good opponent. I am the prince of the Black Dragon tribe, Ao Ziyun. Who are you? The youth asked calmly, and the image of a black true dragon actually soared behind him. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws, exuding a powerful pressure. Strange, Ling Han thought. The netherworld also had the dragon tribe, and their surname was Ao? Why did it seem like they were from the same family as the dragon tribe of the immortal realm? But the two realms were opposing each other, so how could they possibly be allied by marriage? Ling Han smiled calmly and said, I am Ling Han. If you can block 3 moves from me and not die, I will spare your life, Ao Ziyun said coldly. Cell phones read more easily. Chapter 1254. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. In this world, there was no one in the same realm as him who could kill him in 3 moves. This Ao Ziyun was only in the low extreme, and his aura was slightly stronger than Ling Han's, so he was either in the late stage or the peak stage. You're very confident. It's only interesting to step on someone like that, Ling Han said. Ao Ziyun coldly said, even if I don't kill you in 3 moves, I'll still teach you a lesson. He had been angered by Ling Han, who had actually said that he would trample on him. Did he know what his identity as a dark dragon prince represented? He moved, and as he struck out with his palm, a massive black dragon claw instantly descended from the sky, pressing down on Ling Han. Multiple divine patterns appeared, interweaving to form a terrifying black flame. The black dragon was proficient in controlling fire. This was a supreme divine flame that could burn anything. Ling Han was slightly surprised. Was this the descendant of a true dragon? Strong, very strong indeed. He had a feeling that if he let the other party burn him like this, even a physique like his would be burned alive. Of course, this was definitely not something that could be done in a short period of time. It would take at least 10 days to half a month. But it was still achievable. For example, if a few more people of equal strength were to come and trap him, then this black flame would have a miraculous effect. As expected, one should not look down on others. Ling Han flicked his fingers and used the lightning sword technique. Shio. Instantly, sword chi swept toward the dragon claw. Puff. The sword chi swept across, and cracks quickly appeared on the dragon claw. Then, it shattered and was finally shredded into pieces. Ao Ziyun could not help but be slightly surprised and said, I didn't expect you to be so capable. If I didn't have some ability, I wouldn't have dared to mingle around here, Ling Han said coolly. Realization dawned on Ao Ziyun, and he said, You're also here to participate in the 2-realm prodigy gathering, right? What 2-world prodigies meeting? Ling Han muttered in his heart, but his expression did not change as he said, You too. Nonsense. If I'm not qualified, then who else is? Ao Ziyun said proudly. I forgot to tell you, I hate arrogant people like you, Ling Han said. So what? Ao Ziyun laughed coldly. Let me test the waters first to see if you have the right to participate. He attacked again, this time towards Ling Han. He still pressed his palm down, and it turned into a dragon claw. However, this time, the entire dragon claw was wrapped in black flames, as if it was a monster born from heaven and earth that wanted to destroy this world. Ling Han took a deep breath and blew it out fiercely. Whoosh, violent winds whistled and blew past the dragon claw. Instantly, the blazing flames were forcefully extinguished, and only a bare dragon claw was still pressing down. However, its might had decreased sharply, and it could no longer pose a threat to Ling Han. The corners of Ao Ziyun's mouth twitched involuntarily. You're doing this on purpose, aren't you? And you say that I'm arrogant? You blew out my divine flame with a breath of air. Isn't that even more arrogant? However, this brat really couldn't be underestimated. The black flames were a natural talent of his race, and added with the regulations of heaven and earth that he had fused with, it shouldn't be something that a cultivator at the low extreme of the sun-moon tier could block. It should be known that he had killed a great many cultivators of the immortal realm in the high extreme of the sun-moon tier with the black flames on this battlefield. None of them could stand up to the might of the black flames, and he had never thought that it would be blocked by someone who was similarly in the low extreme. Encountering an opponent at the same cultivation level. What did this mean? The other party was also a king tier. A determination to win rose up in Ao Ziyun. His cultivation level was actually higher than Ling Han's, being at the peak stage of the low extreme. If he couldn't quickly suppress this opponent, then wouldn't that mean that he was inferior to the latter? Humph, in the immortal realm, could there be a prodigy that could stand shoulder to shoulder with this prince? He said with a cold smirk. He leaped up and charged out. This time he was serious. A black dragon soared furiously behind him, raising his aura endlessly. He brought along a burning black cloud as he charged over. Wherever it passed, the ground would be burnt until it cracked, and the protruding rocks would turn into nothingness. Ling Han was unafraid. He used the star-plucking step and faced his opponent head-on. His fist shot out with supreme dominance. I don't care if you're a dragon or a worm, in front of me, you can only be suppressed to the ground. Ping pong pong pit. The two of them exchanged blows, their fists colliding endlessly. Every time they collided, the heaven and earth would lose color. They were obviously only in the low extreme of the mountain river tier. Furthermore, this might practically made one suspect that two great elites of the heavenly body tier were fighting to the death. Little Han, put in more effort and shatter every bone of this brat. Today, we'll eat roasted dragon bones. Grandpa Ginseng is already unable to endure the hunger and thirst, and wants to drink the fresh blood of the netherworld. Rabbit and the old Ginseng cheered Ling Han on from one side. However, these two guys were both good-for-nothings, and their words were extremely hurtful. Ao Ziyun was both shocked and furious. As an elite, he naturally could listen in all directions in battle. The words of the old Ginseng and Rabbit naturally could not escape his ears. They actually said that they wanted to eat his dragon bones. These guys were really detestable. But Ling Han's strength also shocked him. In the two-realm battlefield, because of the collision between the two worlds, the regulations were very chaotic and would cause a cultivator's battle prowess to drop greatly. But this kind of weakening was two-sided. If I fell, you would also fall. Furthermore, in this place, the regulations of the netherworld were slightly stronger. Theoretically speaking, his weakening should be slightly better than Ling Han's. But the two of them actually only fought to a draw. He was clearly 2 subminor levels higher than the other, and this was a suppression of 2 stars of power. Furthermore, in terms of terrain, he even had the advantage, and this was only a draw. Then, if they were placed in a place where the two realms were balanced, wouldn't he lose? Yet he did not know that Ling Han possessed demonic origin, and could adapt to the regulations of the two realms. He was not weakened at all, and the one who was at a disadvantage was actually him. But because he did not know, he couldn't help but feel a strong sense of wariness towards Ling Han. How could this being of the immortal realm be so freakish? He could actually go against the power of 2 stars and fight to a draw with him. It should be known that he, too, was a super genius that had cultivated to the true pinnacle of the mountain river tier. A bit strong but still not enough. Ao Ziyun naturally would not give up easily. With a battle cry, he was no longer just competing in power with Ling Han. Instead, he unleashed a secret technique and madly increased his battle prowess. Ling Han countered every move that came his way. Using his finger as a sword, he used the lightning sword technique. Sword chi danced, fast and ruthless. You were strong and so was I. Both sides were still evenly matched. To say nothing of Ao Ziyun's shock, even Ling Han was secretly rueful. There were indeed countless prodigies in this world. It should be known that this was only a passageway between the two realms, and in the immortal realm, there were innumerable such passageways. He could encounter such a prodigy in any random two-realm battlefield. Then how many were there in the whole netherworld? However, in a battle of equals, he was invincible. Ling Han was filled with confidence because his strongest attributes were his spirit and physique, and he was far from fighting to that extent at present. The indestructible heaven scroll should be a supreme secret technique in the celestial realm. He had only slowly mastered it after being forcefully instilled by the Black Tower, and he definitely did not believe that there was a technique that could match it in the immortal realm. Dragon's might! Ao Ziyun exclaimed softly. Wang, the image of the black dragon behind him suddenly exuded a frightening might. Even those in the high extreme of the Sun-Moon tier would feel a chill in their hearts, and as a result, their battle prowess would drop greatly. Chapter 1256. In the face of Ling Han's forcefulness, even Ao Ziyun could only retreat. The two of them battled all the way, while Ao Ziyun retreated all the way. Who knew how many mountain rocks were shattered, and some mountain river tier cultivators along the way almost wet their pants in fright. Whether they were from the netherworld or the immortal realm, they all ran far away. If they were swept by the aftermath of the battle, even if they didn't die, they would be heavily injured. To say nothing of mountain river tier cultivators, even elites at the Sun-Moon tier were apprehensive. They only dared to watch from afar, not daring to get too close. Otherwise, even they would be killed. Those who could spectate the battle from a close distance had to be at least at the high extreme of the Sun-Moon tier. However, when they discovered that their opponents were only at the low extreme, even beings at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier broke out in a cold sweat. Prodigies like them might not even need tens of thousands of years to catch up to them. Damn it! Ao Ziyun howled fiercely. To think that he was invincible among his peers in the netherworld, yet he had only lost to one person, and that person was indeed a genius. He wholeheartedly accepted his defeat, and it was not unjust. But to think that such a monster would appear in the god realm. I can't accept this. I can't accept this. The veins on his forehead bulged. Since the heavens had given birth to a heaven's chosen one like him, why would someone like Ling Han run out and cause trouble for him? Ling Han shook his head and said, "You think too highly of yourself. The world is so big, how many corners can you go to? There is no lack of geniuses in this world. Don't be too full of yourself." For example, he had only visited 2 galaxies, but he had already encountered many geniuses, such as He Tao and Wu Wenong. Which one of them was not a well-known figure in the world? If they were to battle on the same cultivation level, none of them would be weaker than Ao Ziyun. He had not been to the netherworld before, but he believed that the vastness of the netherworld should not be inferior to that of the immortal realm. Even eternal river tiers could only travel a limited area, so who knew how many prodigies there were in this world? There was always a higher mountain, and there was only a fine line between confidence and arrogance. Ling Han, I admit that you are very strong, but compared to the geniuses of my realm, you are still very far off. Ao Ziyun knew that it was impossible for him to defeat Ling Han. Even if he relied on divine talismans and medicinal pills to achieve victory, that was not due to his strength. A conceited genius like him would naturally disdain using such a method to win. He would only use this method to save his life. In a battle of the same level, a loss was a loss. Otherwise, it would only make him lose more face. But now that the 2 worlds were involved, he naturally wouldn't allow Ling Han to be arrogant. Oh, is that so? Ling Han smiled faintly. That's right. My realm has a prodigy called Qi Huangji. He has cultivated for no more than 200 years, and has now already advanced into the pinnacle level of the Sun-Moon tier. Compared to him, you are like a firefly to the bright moon, not even worth mentioning at all. Ao Ziyun did his best to belittle Ling Han. Ling Han could not help but snicker. If he was so weak, then what was Ao Ziyun? However, advancing into the pinnacle level of the Sun-Moon tier in just 200 years was extremely terrifying. It should be known that how many Sun-Moon tiers could break through to the heavenly body tier? The ratio was probably 1 in 10,000. However, those who cultivated the pinnacle level of the Sun-Moon tier and then advanced into the heavenly body tier were at most 1 in 10,000 in the heavenly body tier. How difficult was it? And this Qi Huangji actually used a mere 200 years to reach the pinnacle level of the Sun-Moon tier. In other words, if he was willing, he could completely break through to the heavenly body tier in 200 years. With this comparison, it could be seen how frightening this person was. Though Ling Han had cultivated for no more than 30 years, after advancing into the immortal level, he had borrowed the power of the reincarnation tree many times, comprehending Tao under the tree. 1 day was equivalent to 1 year, and in truth, the time he had comprehended his cultivation level had far surpassed 200 years. Perhaps this Qi Huangji also has a treasure similar to the Black Tower that can accelerate the flow of time, he speculated. Because Small Tower had said that when the Black Tower recovered to its complete state, it could activate the acceleration of time. One day in the Black Tower could be 10 days, a month, or even a few years in the outside world. This was not only the acceleration of the spirit, but also the whole person. Even the accumulation of cultivation level could be accelerated. Ling Han chuckled. Advancing quickly was not his trump card, but rather the indestructible body brought about by the indestructible heaven scroll. He naturally would not explain this to the other party, and only said, "All right, then I'll wait to meet this person. If you will." 3 years later, at the Two-Realm Prodigy Gathering, Qi Huangji will let you taste what despair is. Ao Ziyun withdrew his spear and left. He drew out a divine seal and stuck it on his body. Suddenly his speed skyrocketed. Even if Ling Han used the star-plucking step, he would at most be on par with him. Ling Han did not pursue. If he went any further, he would be in the territory of the netherworld. Who knew how many elites were standing guard there? His bit of strength was really a little insufficient. He stopped and withdrew the divine demon sword. A powerful pressure rose up in his heart. If he wanted to topple the 5 sects, he had to have the cultivation level of the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier no matter what. Merely battle prowess was still not enough. Because the 5 sects had existed for so many years, who knew how many trump cards they had? Thus, the cultivation level of the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier was absolutely safe. In any case, he had already waited for so many years, and Ling Han did not mind being late for another 10 or 20 years. However, he definitely could not be rash and drag himself into trouble. Shio. One after another, figures appeared. They were all in the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier, and they all stared at Ling Han. These were all elites of the netherworld, and none of them concealed the killing intent in their eyes. This young man from the immortal realm was too freakish, and needed to be eliminated as soon as possible. Otherwise, if he was allowed to fully mature, that would be a colossal disaster for the netherworld. Hee, you guys think too much. There were naturally elites in the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier on the side of the immortal realm. They had discovered the commotion earlier, and hurried over to join in the fun. Now that they saw that the people of the netherworld wanted to harm Ling Han, they all stepped out. Kill! The elites of the netherworld were very straightforward. The two realms had already been at war for how many years, and were already like fire and water, so what need was there for them to be polite? They immediately launched into a bloody battle. "Young man, you go first," an elite of the immortal realm called out to Ling Han. In truth, no one was willing to fight a battle that they had no confidence in winning. Thus, the elites of the immortal realm had only moved to protect Ling Han's life, and had not thought of exterminating these beings of the netherworld. If they fought this battle to the end, no matter who won in the end, they would have to pay a very heavy price. While it was true that they had come to the two-realm battlefield to resist the invasion of the other realm, they had also come for merit points and realm spirit stones. Who was willing to really die in battle? Thus, as long as Ling Han ran, this battle naturally could not be fought. Ling Han nodded, and used the star-plucking step. His figure flew, and he instantly disappeared into the distance. Previously, the elites of the immortal realm could not stop Ao Ziyun, and now, the elites of the netherworld naturally could not stop Ling Han either. No, my present cultivation level is still too low. I have to think of a way to raise it as soon as possible. Otherwise, 3 years later, when I go to participate in that two-realm prodigy gathering, I will definitely not be a match for Qi Huangji. Ling Han thought as he ran. Chapter 1257. Ling Han was confident, but definitely not arrogant. After escaping from the encirclement, Ling Han stopped, and waited for the old ginseng and rabbit to come over. When they arrived, Ling Han said, "Rabbit, do you want to go to a good place?" "What good place?" Rabbit asked. He had not entered the Black Tower yet. Ling Han laughed, and first threw the old ginseng into the Black Tower. Then he grabbed Rabbit and entered with him. What is this place? Rabbit was beyond shocked. A spatial god tool was something that he did not even dare to think about. Here, go there and cultivate, Ling Han threw him under the reincarnation tree and did not bother to explain, so he let the old ginseng go with him. In a short while, he heard Rabbit yelling. He was really stunned. If he comprehended under this divine tree, wouldn't he have a chance to reach the Genesis tier? Ling Han chuckled, summoned Small Tower, and asked, "Is there a way to quickly dispel the alchemical poison in my body?" Small Tower floated slightly and said, "Yes." Ling Han was instantly overjoyed and said, "Quick, tell me what to do." If he could quickly dispel the alchemical poison in his body, he could reach the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier in a very short time, then advance to the pinnacle level, and then rush to the peak stage of the pinnacle level. The fourth level of the Black Tower has already been opened, and can provide divine fire every 3 months to temper your body. Under the divine fire, everything inside your body will be burned to ashes, Small Tower said calmly. Ling Han's lips twitched involuntarily. Why did this sound so terrifying? However, the Black Tower could provide divine fire and temper his physique. This was something that Small Tower had said long ago. However, Small Tower did not mention this again, and he quickly forgot about it. He probed and asked, "Then will I be in danger?" Small Tower nodded. "If you cannot endure, you will turn into ashes. No, not even ashes will be left behind. You will completely turn into nothingness, and I will not have to endure an idiotic master like you anymore. Fuck, you Tsundere Tower, will you die if you don't insult me?" Ling Han thought about it and said, "Why didn't you tell me before? Do you really want to die so badly?" Small Tower countered with a question first, and then said, "At first, I wanted to wait until you reached the heavenly body tier before allowing you to temper your divine body and raise your physique to another level." In truth, Small Tower had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. It had already arranged the path for Ling Han, and it should be said that it was the most beneficial direction for Ling Han's development. However, it always liked to mock Ling Han a little. Ling Han was pleasantly surprised and said, "You mean that my physique can be improved by another level and reach a level that surpasses my realm by 2 small realms? Surpassing 2 minor levels is a bit exaggerated, but you will definitely be much more powerful than you are now. Moreover, after being tempered by the divine flames, the greatest effect is that you will have the possibility of being reborn from the ashes," Small Tower said. Ling Han immediately revealed a resolute expression and said, "There's no need to think about it. I want to be tempered by the divine flame." In the small world, his physique was a level higher than his cultivation level. He was simply a monster of the same cultivation level. It was basically impossible for anyone to injure him. Even those who were a level higher than him would find it difficult to do so. But in the immortal realm, his physique could only surpass 1 minor level, and that was not safe. In truth, as long as battle prowess surpassed 4 stars, then it was possible to injure him, because 4 stars represented a minor level. Although 5-star geniuses were said to only exist in legends, in reality, such geniuses still existed. Moreover, Ling Han himself was such a genius, so the chances of him encountering such geniuses were quite high. Thus, his current physique was not truly invincible among those of the same cultivation level, but it was very, very awesome. Also, what is rebirth from the ashes? Ling Han asked. Cultivating the fire of indestructible life is like the immortal phoenix, reborn from the ashes of extreme death, Small Tower said. A portion of the indestructible heaven scroll borrows the secret art of the immortal phoenix to turn death into life, a supreme secret art. Immortal phoenix? Ling Han asked in surprise. Not a true phoenix? Compared to the immortal phoenix, what is a true phoenix? Small Tower said very disdainfully. Then the indestructible heaven scroll also referenced the secret art of some divine beast, immortal beast? Ling Han asked curiously. The primal chaos origin beast, 1,000 transformations tortoise, and diamond ant are all top-notch existences in the celestial realm. They were fused into one by the heavenly venerable, and finally cultivated the indestructible heaven scroll. Small Tower said very proudly. Of course, the most important thing is that the heavenly venerable comprehended the ultimate regulations. This is the true essence of the indestructible heaven scroll. Ling Han gave an "oh." He hadn't entered the celestial realm yet, and didn't know how awesome the primal chaos origin beast and thousand transformations tortoise that Small Tower spoke of were. In any case, he only knew that the indestructible heaven scroll was very good and very powerful. Ling Han nodded. He desired strength, whether it was to overthrow the 5 sects, or to meet that Qi Yanji in the two-realm prodigy gathering 3 years later. You have to think clearly. If you don't endure it, then you will completely perish. Small Tower said solemnly. With your talent, it is not impossible to endure the divine fire in the Sun Moon tier, but the danger is still extremely great. And if you do it again in the heavenly body tier, your chances will be much greater. Ling Han laughed and said, since you said that I can endure it, then I believe that I can definitely do it. Small Tower nodded and said, I'll give you 3 days' time to circulate the indestructible heaven scroll again. You have to thoroughly grasp every detail. This is the key for you to pass the tempering of the divine fire. Otherwise, only death awaits you. What comes next is your willpower. Without the resolve to overcome everything and walk to the end, you will only be burned to ashes by the divine fire. All right. Ling Han meditated under the reincarnation tree and completely circulated the indestructible heaven scroll once. He studied every detail, and after confirming that he had truly circulated it as he wished, he stood up. And 5 days had passed, and not the 3 days that Small Tower had said. This was 5 years of Dao comprehension. Let's begin. Ling Han said solemnly. Small Tower sent Ling Han to a faraway place. There was actually a gigantic great furnace here, ancient in appearance. Ling Han had never seen it before. Why would a furnace suddenly appear? Ling Han was surprised. Small Tower, just how many things have you been hiding from me? Small Tower did not speak. Hey, I'm talking to you. Ling Han called out loudly. Oh, is that so? Only then did Small Tower speak up. I didn't hear you just now. What are you talking about? Ling Han repeated the question, but Small Tower was still stupefied. So this Tsundra Tower did not want to answer him at all, and that was why it had pretended to be deaf and mute. He was really naive to actually believe that a tool spirit could have a time when its ears would fail to work. Go in. Small Tower shook lightly, and the great furnace opened. Immediately, blazing flames soared into the skies. In comparison, Ao Ziyun's black flames were practically child's play. Ling Han couldn't help but grit his teeth. If he threw himself into such divine fire, he would definitely turn into ashes in an instant. Was this tempering, or was this sending him to his death? Remember, the only thing that can protect you is the indestructible heaven scroll. You only need to continuously circulate the heaven scroll and forget everything else. Small Tower said solemnly. Whether or not you can seek life in death and rise from the ashes, this is the key. Don't ever think of going against this kind of flames. This is something that is completely impossible. Because they are not divine flames, but immortal flames. Reading on a cell phone is more refreshing. Chapter 1258. With Ling Han's current physique, putting aside immortal flames, even level 6 divine flames would be able to melt him in half a year or a year as long as he had enough time. Level 7 divine flames would be easy, and he would only need 10 days to half a month. Then what about level 8, level 9, or level 10? They would probably be able to turn him into ashes in an instant. Immortal Flames chuckled. He was really seeking his own death. To say nothing of the fact that he was only at the Sun Moon tier now, so what if he advanced into the Heavenly Body tier? Could he resist Immortal Flames? What, are you afraid? Small Tower didn't rush him. Ling Han grimaced and said, Are you sure I can still rise from the ashes? Small Tower said calmly, In the outside world, to say nothing of being burned by immortal flames, even level 8 divine flames can instantly turn you into ashes. But here, you can maintain a bit of your divine sense, and let you circulate the indestructible heaven scroll. When you comprehend the profound secrets of rising from the ashes, you will be able to reconstruct your body. It paused and then continued, Moreover, though you have fused your two souls, there will still be a bit of hidden danger. Only by rising from the ashes can you completely merge your two selves into one. Ling Han clenched his teeth, and with a sudden leap, jumped into the great furnace. He had really jumped into a pit of fire. Ling Han said self-mockingly as he circulated the indestructible heaven scroll. Boom! The terrifying flames swept over, and Ling Han was unable to put up even the slightest bit of resistance. His entire body was incinerated into nothingness. These were immortal flames, and their level was far too high. Even if the notionless saint were here, even if he were at his peak, he would only be insta-killed if he charged into these immortal flames. Under normal circumstances, he should have already died, but in the Black Tower, there was a power that protected a sliver of his divine sense. A sliver of his divine sense wasn't his whole divine sense, and the immortal flames could even temper his divine sense. Ling Han seemed to have returned to 10,000 years ago. At that time, his body had been shattered by the Black Tower, and only a sliver of his divine sense remained. He comprehended the indestructible heaven scroll in a special state, and only reincarnated 10,000 years later. Right now, it was a bit similar. He lost his physical body, completely unable to move, yet still had to have his soul burned by the immortal flame. This was just too painful. This was something that went straight into the soul, so it was impossible for him to faint. He was forced to experience that boundless pain, which made him want to shout and scream. But now that he didn't have a physical body, he couldn't make any sound even if he wanted to. A thought flashed through his mind. He might as well just die. This was too unbearable. As soon as this thought emerged, he was immediately overwhelmed with shock. It turned out that the hesitation and cowardice that he had yet to sever on the path of success had finally erupted when he was enduring unparalleled pain. He wanted to suppress this thought, but the immortal flame burned his soul, the pain like a tide, each wave more ferocious than the last, making his will also become blurry. Before this, he had indeed suffered a lot of pain, but that was only on the physical level. There had never been a time like this, where he had lost his physical body, and the pain was directly affecting his spirit. Even with his great willpower, he still wanted to die. His will was getting weaker and weaker, and his soul fire was on the verge of collapse. If this thought fell into hell, he would never be able to get up again. No! A flash of indignation suddenly flashed through his mind. He had cultivated bitterly for so many years, but it wasn't for the sake of dying. He still had family, friends, and lovers. He still hadn't seen his son, and he still hadn't suppressed that fierce woman, the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. Moreover, he still hadn't overthrown the 5 sects, and he still hadn't found that mysterious assassin that he had traveled from the Joint Peace Planet to the Flying Cloud Planet. There were too many regrets and things that he couldn't let go of. How could he die? A wisp of flame ignited in his heart, and Ling Han was determined to live on. The indestructible heavens scroll circulated in his spirit. This was a dual refinement of the body and soul in the first place, and now that his physical body was gone, his spirit was still there. Over and over again, Ling Han circulated the indestructible heaven scroll, and his spirit was finally no longer dim. However, this only maintained the vitality of his spirit, and didn't mean that he was no longer suffering the pain of being burned by the fierce flames. In reality, the longer he resisted, the longer he would be burned, and the pain wouldn't lessen in the slightest. Rising from the ashes. Small Tower's words flashed through Ling Han's mind. Resisting the immortal flames wasn't the correct solution. With his current abilities, it was impossible for him to resist them. He was able to live because he was presently in the Black Tower, and what he needed to do was to search for the secrets of rising from the ashes from the immortal flames. And the reference was the indestructible heaven scroll. A portion of this scripture was obtained through the secret technique of the immortal phoenix. If he could truly master this scripture, then Ling Han would grasp the great mystical power of rising from the ashes of the immortal phoenix, and truly possess the ability of being indestructible. As he endured the burning of the fierce flames, he analyzed the portion of the scripture in the indestructible heaven scroll that was related to reconstructing one's body. Ordinarily, he wouldn't discover anything special about this, but under the burning of the immortal flames, Ling Han suddenly had another comprehension. So that's how it is, so that's how it is. Oh, it can be like this too. He sighed ruefully. Though the burning of the immortal flames was painful, it also allowed him to personally experience the feeling of being reborn after death. Of course, merely experiencing it was still not enough. He still had to comprehend it and truly grasp this secret technique. Multiple golden symbols circulated in his divine sense, continuously twisting and changing shape, and finally turned into multiple true phoenixes that soared into the skies with their necks raised, their bodies burning with endless fierce flames. These were not true phoenixes, but immortal phoenixes. Ling Han suddenly had a kind of realization. If it was a celestial dragon, it should be of the water attribute, while immortal phoenixes were of the fire attribute, representing two extremes. For example, the black dragon tribe that Ao Ziyun belonged to played with fire. They were completely mixed breeds, and could not possibly compare to immortal phoenixes at all. Could it be that these immortal flames were actually left behind by immortal phoenixes? Otherwise, why could he not die? That was because it was of the same origin as the indestructible Heaven Scroll, and why could he comprehend a secret technique that belonged solely to immortal phoenixes through the immortal flames, rising from the ashes? It was also because the indestructible Heaven Scroll had borrowed a portion of the technique of immortal phoenixes. As this kind of realization flashed through his mind, Ling Han's heart became more and more calm. He was confident in his comprehension ability, and furthermore, this was inside the Black Tower, so he would definitely be able to comprehend this kind of technique. Time slowly passed. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Until 11 days later, a speck of light suddenly rose up from the great furnace. Small Tower was instantly excited, its body flickering uncertainly. It did not have a physical body in the first place, and had only transformed into the shape of a tower so that people could feel it. It immediately activated the Black Tower. Wang, the lid of the great furnace closed, and suddenly, the fierce flames that filled the skies disappeared. After that speck of light flew a few times, it suddenly fell to the ground. That was actually a fetus in the shape of light, and within the fetus was a small person. This was an infant. Ling Han. He had succeeded. Ling Han had finally comprehended the technique of rising from the ashes, but there seemed to be something wrong, because rising from the ashes would return to his original state, and not turn him into a small infant. Haha. Even Small Tower could not help but laugh loudly. Chapter 1260. Ling Han had heard Rabbit describe realm spirit stones in detail before. Thus, he was able to tell with a single glance that this was a realm spirit stone. Moreover, it was palm-sized, which was astonishing. Normally, obtaining a realm spirit stone the size of a pinky was already very good. Obtaining a realm spirit stone the size of an egg would be extremely lucky. Moreover, this was palm-sized. Even heavenly body tier elites would be tempted by it. If I were you, I definitely wouldn't reach out to pick it up. I'd leave immediately. A voice suddenly traveled into Ling Han's ears. It was incredibly cold and carried with it a powerful killing intent. After exiting the Black Tower, Ling Han naturally transformed into his human form. He followed the voice and saw a young man standing nearby, staring at the realm spirit stone beneath his feet. This was definitely a being from the immortal realm. He didn't feel out of place. Ling Han couldn't help but smile and ask, "Why?" "Because it's in my hands. If you fight with me, you'll only be killed by me," the young man said coldly. "Oh, are you trying to snatch it from me?" Ling Han asked. The young man snorted in disdain and said, "Right now, this realm spirit stone is ownerless. It hasn't fallen into your hands, so how can I snatch it from you? Natural treasures should belong to the strong." Ling Han bent down and picked up the realm spirit stone. He smiled and said, "Now that it's in my hands, what do I do?" The young man's lips twitched in anger. "Are you fucking trying to humiliate me?" He said darkly, "State your name. I don't kill nameless people with my 1,000 illusion saber." "This person is interesting." Ling Han smiled and said, "My surname is Ni, and my name is Ba." "Ni Ba," the young man murmured. He didn't seem to have heard of such a powerful young man. However, after repeating the name a few times, he came to a realization. Isn't an I by your father? This bastard actually dares to take advantage of me. Very well, you dare to play with me, Yen-jun. The young man's killing intent surged. He couldn't help but want to kill someone. Ling Han put away the realm spirit stone and said, I was just joking. Young people should be magnanimous. Why so serious? There was a flash of saber light as Yen-jun unsheathed his saber and slashed at Ling Han. His attainments in the saber Dao were extraordinary. With a slash of his saber, even the air was torn apart, revealing a vacuum crack. Ling Han used the star-plucking step, and as his figure flashed, he dodged this attack with incredible speed. He could not help but sigh. The immortal phoenix's secret technique was not only about rebirth from the ashes, but also speed. With a flap of the phoenix's wings, it was known as the world's fastest, and if he could comprehend such a wonderful technique, it would be great. Unfortunately, the focus of the indestructible heaven scroll was on indestructibility. It mainly focused on tempering the physique and spirit, and did not have any outstanding areas in terms of movement techniques and power. However, Yen-jun was taken aback. The other party's speed was a little too fast. He snorted and said, No wonder you dare to compete with me. Turns out you have some skills. Ling Han said indifferently, For the sake that this is the two-realm battlefield, I don't want to kill you. I want to leave you with a useful body to fight against the living beings of the netherworld. But if you don't know what's good for you, then I can only send you on your way. Yen-jun was so angry that he laughed and said, You only dodged a saber strike from me, yet you actually dare to boast so shamelessly? What a joke. Ling Han also laughed and said, If a tiger doesn't show its might, do you think I'm a sick cat? Yen-jun condensed his saber, and bursts of divine light surged from his body before entering the saber in his hand. The saber actually started to pulse as if it had a life of its own. Ling Han knew that his opponent was preparing a powerful technique, yet he did not attack. Instead, he allowed his opponent to prepare. Yen-jun was only at the peak stage of the low extreme, which was a subminor level higher than Ling Han. If Ling Han did not even have the confidence to win against him, then he would be far too much of a failure. Arrogant, you're truly arrogant, Yen-jun said. After absorbing the boundless divine light, the saber in his hand was actually surging with a black aura. It appeared extremely strange. Ling Han clearly knew that he was preparing a powerful technique, yet he did not attack to interrupt him. He was far too arrogant. Junior, you're going to pay the price in blood, he roared as he pounced toward Ling Han. His saber slashed out, and a ferocious black beast materialized. It was hard to tell what it was, but it looked a bit like a tiger with the tail of a fish. The ferocious beast opened its massive mouth and bit at Ling Han. Its massive mouth was pitch black, and it looked as if it could swallow the entire world. Ling Han did not retreat. Instead, he condensed a fist and punched it at the ferocious beast. Countless divine patterns intertwined and transformed into a boundless streak of light. The ferocious beast was instantly sent flying, and it transformed back into a streak of saber light that shattered in the sky. Yen-jun was astonished. He had already unleashed his full power with this saber strike. Moreover, the 1,000 illusionary saber in his hand had increased the might of his attack by several-fold. However, Ling Han had only used an ordinary punch to shatter his attack. This was far too powerful, wasn't it? Yen-jun hurriedly puckered his lips and roared. The sound waves surged forth, and under the influence of his origin power, they spread in all directions at a speed far faster than normal. It wasn't long before a long roar traveled over from the distance. Moreover, there was more than one roar. Ling Han couldn't help but chuckle and say, What? You can't defeat me, so you're looking for help? Yen-jun's face involuntarily flushed red. He had always been conceited, and had thought that he was at least the second strongest among those his age. However, he had encountered a powerful opponent that he could not defeat right after coming to the two-realm battlefield to train. His opponent was even weaker than him by a subminor level. If it was just a battle of wills, he would definitely turn around and leave with his pride. However, this also involved a realm spirit stone. That was a palm-sized realm spirit stone. How precious was that? Thus, he shamelessly called for help from his companions. After a short while, 5 people rushed over from all directions at almost the same time. Their cultivation levels ranged from the low extreme to the high extreme, and there were 4 men and 1 woman. Junior brother Yen, what happened? The 5 people asked in unison. This was because Yen Jun had just released an emergency signal from the Blazing Inferno sect. Yen Jun pointed at Ling Han and said, "He has a realm spirit stone on him. It's the size of a palm." When the 5 people heard this, they all revealed looks of surprise and joy. An older man clasped his hands in greeting toward Ling Han and said, "Brother, would you be willing to part with that realm spirit stone? Our Blazing Inferno sect will definitely repay you." Ling Han smiled and said, "I'll definitely repay you, and you want me to give you my realm spirit stones?" The 6 people looked at each other, and a hint of joy appeared on their faces. It seemed like Ling Han's attitude was negotiable. "Brother, state your conditions," the older man said. Ling Han pondered for a moment, and then said, "Simple. Use true origin stones or godly metal to exchange for it." In any case, realm spirit stones were wealth to him, so he naturally didn't mind selling them to anyone. Sure, the older man hurriedly said. He hesitated for a moment, and then said, "Brother, can you let me see the size of this realm spirit stone with my own eyes?" Chapter 1261. Ling Han wasn't afraid of their schemes. He took out the realm spirit stone, flashed it, and said, "Satisfied?" "Satisfied, satisfied." The older man hurriedly nodded and asked, "Brother, how many true origin stones are you planning to sell it for? How much are you willing to pay?" Ling Han asked with a smile. Yen Jun and the others whispered to each other. After a while, they finally said, "We have a limited number of true origin stones. Brother, would you like to come with us to the Blazing Inferno sect? Our elders will naturally give you a sufficient reward." Ling Han shook his head with a smile and said, "That won't do. How do I know if you're trying to lure me into a trap and kill me there?" It was important to be wary of others. Even if he had an accomplice, he couldn't act recklessly. "How about this? I'll give you 3 months. After 3 months, I'll wait for you at Old Zhang's Inn in Wolffang City. If you bring me enough true origin stones or godly metal above level 4, I'll sell this realm spirit stone to you. Otherwise, I'll auction it." A young man's expression instantly turned ferocious, and he said, "Seventh senior brother, let's capture this guy and take the realm spirit stone." 2 people immediately agreed. The older man pondered for a moment, then shook his head and said, "How could the Blazing Inferno sect do such a thing? Don't mention it again." He nodded at Ling Han and said, "Brother, it's a deal. We'll meet again at Old Zhang's Inn in 3 months." He led the 5 of them away. After walking for some distance, someone couldn't help but ask, "Seventh senior brother, why didn't you use force? Ancestor Mao is only a tiny bit away from advancing to the heavenly body tier. If we return that realm spirit stone, he'll definitely succeed, and we'll all become heroes." The older man shook his head and said, "That brat isn't easy to deal with. Otherwise, why would junior brother Yen call us over?" Yen Jun immediately looked embarrassed and said, "I'm far from being a match for him." The others all exclaimed in shock. Although Yen Jun's cultivation level wasn't high, his battle prowess was extraordinary among them. He was a 4-star genius, and only those at the high extreme could suppress him. Since he said that he was far from being a match for Ling Han, that meant that Ling Han's battle prowess was at least at the early stage of the high extreme, or even the middle stage or late stage. The older man continued, "If we attack him together, it'll be fine if we succeed. However, if we fail, we'll have no fate with that realm spirit stone. We won't even have the chance to purchase it. Junior brother Lu, junior brother Ma, go and find Uncle Qian immediately. He's at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier, so he'll definitely be able to suppress that brat. We'll follow him in secret, and when Uncle Qian arrives, we'll force that brat to hand over his realm spirit stones. If he's willing to cooperate, I'll spare his life. Otherwise, I'll send him on his way." The other 5 felt apprehensive in their hearts. This seventh senior brother looked warm and amiable, but his mind was cautious and gloomy like a venomous snake. Those who offended him really didn't even know how they died. They hurriedly acted according to the plan. 2 of them left to bring over stronger elites, while the other 4 followed Ling Han in secret. They left behind special marks of the Blazing Inferno sect along the way to guide him. Ling Han's divine sense was extremely sharp, so he sensed it not long after he was targeted. Sure enough, you can't judge a person's heart from his appearance, Ling Han thought ruefully. In the beginning, he had still had a favorable impression of the older man, which was why he had agreed to sell the Realm Spirit Stone to them first. But now, there were only 4 of them left. It was clear that 2 of them had gone to bring over reinforcements, while the remaining 4 were following him in secret, planning to deal him a fatal blow. However, Ling Han was unafraid. Putting aside the fact that this was the 2-realm battlefield, the regulations here were strange, preventing elites from unleashing their full power. Even if his power wasn't damaged, he could still hide in the Black Tower. And if the reinforcements that the other side brought weren't at the heavenly body tier, Ling Han didn't want to hide. Instead, he wanted to fight. In this special place, he could even put up a fight against elites at the consummate level of the Sun Moon tier. He continued to search for Realm Spirit Stones. In any case, he had to wait for 3 months for the Black Tower to regather the power of the immortal flame. Thus, he didn't have a specific target. He looked for Realm Spirit Stones, and he would sometimes enter the Black Tower to concoct pills. This caused trouble for Yen Jun and the others. They suddenly lost track of Ling Han's whereabouts, and they thought that he had discovered their scheme and secretly fled. However, a few days later, Ling Han mysteriously reappeared, which made them even more confused. What is the meaning of this? Did he discover our plan or not? Fortunately, Ling Han didn't disappear for a long time. Most of the time, he was walking on the ground. Occasionally, he would encounter netherworld beings, and they would either fight or flee, depending on how strong they were. Ling Han deliberately went easy on them, and he didn't use his full power when he encountered netherworld elites at the consummate level of the Sun Moon tier. Instead, he directly fled. Otherwise, if the other side's reinforcements were only at the Sun Moon tier, they definitely wouldn't dare to attack. He gave them a chance. If they retreated at the brink of a precipice, he wouldn't pursue the matter. However, if they attacked, he wouldn't show any mercy either. 11 days later, Ling Han's luck was on a completely different level, and he found another Realm Spirit Stone. However, this Realm Spirit Stone was far smaller than the one he had found last time. It was only the size of his little finger. No matter how small a mosquito's leg is, it's still meat. He chuckled as he put the Realm Spirit Stone away. He tilted his head and said, "They're finally here?" The 4 divine sense that had been following him this whole time had now become 7. He sighed. He wasn't a bloodthirsty person, yet there were always people who would force him to kill. Shio 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 shio. 7 figures flew out and surrounded him. They were Yen Jun and the others. A mocking smile appeared on Ling Han's face, and he said, "What's the meaning of this? Didn't we agree to meet again in Wolf Fong City?" Yen Jun and the others all blushed. They hadn't kept their word, and they had been exposed right in front of their faces. This was really not a good feeling. However, the only elder among them wore a cold expression, and he said, "Young man, don't play around. Immediately hand over the Realm Spirit Stones. Don't seek your own death." A thoughtful expression appeared on Ling Han's face. He took out the 2 Realm Spirit Stones and said, "Are you talking about this one or this one?" He raised his left and right hands slightly higher. A greedy expression instantly appeared on the elder's face, and he said, "Hand them both over." "Fine, 300 million true origin stones," Ling Han said with a nod. The elder immediately became angry, and he said, "Brat, do you think I'm joking with you? If you dare to refuse again, I'll kill you." "I'm so scared." Ling Han intentionally made a fearful gesture, and then laughed. "All right, who's going to take it?" He glanced at the others, and then pushed his hands forward. "Come and take it. Don't be polite." Chapter 1262. Yen Jun and the other 5 looked hesitant. This guy's behavior is too strange. Even if he's really scared, shouldn't he just throw the realm spirit stone on the ground and run away? Are you kidding me now? However, an elite at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier was right in front of him, and he still dared to make trouble? A youth took a step forward and said, "All right, leave it to me." His eyes were filled with ambition. If he could personally bring back these 2 realm spirit stones, then his status within the sect would definitely rise greatly. Most importantly, Ancestor Mao was only 1 step away from advancing into the heavenly body tier. If he had contributed to this breakthrough, he would definitely be looked upon differently by Ancestor Mao. How could he receive the attention of a heavenly body tier elite? After he took a step, he immediately took a 2nd step and a 3rd step. He arrived in front of Ling Han and reached out to grab the 2 realm spirit stones. AI. Ling Han let out a sigh. He curled his finger slightly, and Xiao, a ray of sword chi, immediately swept out. "How dare you!" the young man roared. He knew that Ling Han was very powerful, and could even suppress Yan Jun. However, his cultivation level had already reached the peak stage of the medium extreme, and he was also a 1-star genius. Thus, he was slightly more powerful than Yan Jun. Thus, even if Yan Jun couldn't defeat Ling Han, that didn't mean he couldn't. Taking a step back, even if he couldn't defeat them, he had the ability to protect himself. It was precisely because of this that he dared to step forward. Otherwise, what if Ling Han was a hothead and wanted to drag him into the water? He did not expect that Ling Han would really dare to attack him. Even though he was mentally prepared for this, he still couldn't help but feel furious when this wisp of sword light swept towards him. He raised his hand to block the sword light. He thought to himself, "There's a consummate stage powerhouse behind me now. If you attack on impulse, you'll be courting death. You'll be suppressed very soon." The old man was horrified and hurriedly stretched out his hand to grab it. It was too late. The sword light streaked past. Pooh, blood splattered. For of the young man's fingers had been chopped off like flowers scattered by a celestial maiden. He immediately let out a blood-curdling scream. Ling Han used the star-plucking step and quickly retreated, dodging the elder's attack. He laughed and said, My fingers are all broken. How can I hold it?" "Brat, you really don't know what's good for you," the old man said with a gloomy expression. "This kid is trapped in a tight encirclement, yet he still dares to put up a stubborn resistance. He's really courting death." Ling Han laughed and said, "It's too early to say who will live and who will die." "Young man, you're far too ignorant," the elder said with a humph. He then stretched out his hand and grabbed at Ling Han. Multiple divine patterns appeared, and his hand transformed into a 5-fingered mountain that descended from the sky. His name was Qian Sen, and he was one of the higher-ups of the Blazing Inferno sect. Because an elder of the sect had truly touched the boundary of the heavenly body tier, this became the most important matter of the Blazing Inferno sect. Everyone was mobilized to search for realm spirit stones for this ancestor Mao. After all, touching the boundary and truly crossing over were 2 different things. Moreover, the Blazing Inferno sect was only a small force at the Sun-Moon tier. If they could produce an elite at the heavenly body tier, the power of their sect would definitely rise to a whole new level. Under such circumstances, it could be said that the Blazing Inferno sect had truly gone mad for realm spirit stones. Ling Han's eyes widened, and heaven's might instantly burst forth. Heaven's might surged in all directions. What's going on? Why has my power suddenly dropped so much? Heavens! Yan Jun and the others all exclaimed in shock. Even Qian Sen's descending hand was slightly off course, and it had struck in the wrong direction. However, because this hand was far too large, it didn't matter even if it had been slightly off course. It still continued to descend toward Ling Han's head. Ling Han clenched his fist and punched toward the 5-fingered mountain in the sky. The power of his fist condensed into a single point. Poof! The 5-fingered mountain pressed down, yet a streak of divine light soared into the sky. This was a hole that had been blasted into the hand, and the light from the fist was dazzling. Qian Sen couldn't help but groan in pain. Although the 5-fingered mountain had been formed from his origin power, his hand had still received a slight impact when a hole had been blasted into it. He felt a sharp pain in his palm, and a red mark had been left behind. He was slightly astonished. This young man was so powerful. He was actually able to pierce through his defenses and wound his body. Of course, this was because he was far too small. The area that his attack covered was far too wide, and his power was scattered like this. Even if his power was tens of thousands of times greater than Ling Han's, his attack would still be much, much weaker. On the other hand, if he had restricted his power and attacked in a point-to-point manner, his attack would have most likely missed due to the sudden impact of heaven's might. "Young man, you're very impressive," he said in a sinister voice. Although he was praising Ling Han, he didn't conceal his surging killing intent at all. Ling Han smiled modestly and said, "It's just to see. There's no need to praise me like this, elder. This will make me proud. We young people should be careful not to be arrogant." Qian Sen's expression finally changed. Ling Han's calm expression caused him to be unable to control his fury. "Do you really want to seek death?" He opened his left eye, and it actually transformed into a hole of flames. He reached in and grabbed a divine sword that was burning with flames. Using one's own body to nurture a god tool could push the might of the god tool to the pinnacle. However, there was also an obvious flaw, and that was that the god tool's growth would be at the cost of absorbing the user's blood essence, which would affect the user's cultivation. However, for someone like Qian Sen, he was already standing at the peak stage of the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier, and it was impossible for him to advance any further. Thus, he didn't mind expending some blood essence. In any case, he could replenish it with some cultivation. This divine sword was something that he had accumulated over 100 years ago. He had bought a piece of level 8 godly metal and ordered someone to forge it into a sword. Then, he had kept it in his body to nurture the god tool. Although it had only been over 100 years, it had already reached great accomplishment. With this sword in hand, he was confident that he could defeat most opponents at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier. A suitable divine weapon would be a great boost to a martial artist. Blazing heart burns. Qian Sen moved, and with a slash, the flames turned into a beam of light that pierced toward Ling Han's chest. Because of the terrifying heat, ripples appeared in the air as the beam of light swept past. Then they all started to burn. This was extremely terrifying. To say nothing of coming into contact with the terrifying flames, just the high temperature alone could cause a cultivator at the early stage of the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier to lose a layer of skin. The others all retreated, afraid to come into contact with these flames. If that happened, they wouldn't even know how they died. However, Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. If you used poisonous water and sharp metal to attack him, then he would really be a bit wary. After all, Qian Sen was at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier. However, it just had to be flames. One had to realize that he had been burned by immortal flames, and from them, he had deduced the secret technique of the immortal phoenix tribe that allowed them to rise from the ashes. If one wanted to use fire to subdue him, they would have to at least crush him in terms of cultivation level. Chapter 1264. Brat, just you wait. Qian Sen shouted before turning to run. His battle prowess was indeed enough to suppress Ling Han, but his physique was too terrifying, and he couldn't kill him with a single strike. Moreover, Ling Han had a strange flower that could affect his divine sense. Thus, if he couldn't kill Ling Han with a single strike, he would be at a disadvantage. He had lived for more than 3 million years, and had experienced many life and death situations. Because of this, he treasured his life even more. He couldn't take revenge even if he stayed and fought to the death, so why take the risk? Return to the blazing inferno sect. Ancestor Mao was about to break through. The realm spirit stones could only speed up the process, but not necessarily. Moreover, even if he failed, there were still many people in the blazing inferno sect. How could they not gain anything? He sprinted all the way, and whenever Ling Han caught up to him, he would strike out with his sword. Under the bombardment of power at the consummate level, even Ling Han could not possibly ignore it. Every strike would leave behind a wound, though it would not be able to wound his foundation. In fact, in a head-on battle, Qiansun could severely wound Ling Han. After all, he was too powerful. However, because he hadn't been able to wound Ling Han even after using the divine flames, this had left a strong psychological scar in his heart. He thought that Ling Han's defense was indestructible, yet he completely didn't realize that if he gave up on the divine flames and attacked with pure power, the might of his attacks would instead be even greater. Because of this misconception, he ran madly and didn't want to continue fighting. One had to know that Ling Han was only a 6-star genius, and his battle prowess was at the early stage of the high extreme at most. How could he compare to consummate level? Of course, Qiansun was still wary of the misty soul-capturing flower. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in such a sorry state. After chasing Qiansun for a while, Ling Han finally stopped. There was no point in continuing the chase. He couldn't kill Qiansun, or moreover, Wolf Fong City wasn't far away. Once he entered the city, it was strictly forbidden to engage in private fights. He thought for a moment, and decided to return to Wolf Fong City to sell the realm spirit stones he had. In addition, he also had some pills that he had refined in his spare time. He couldn't keep them in his hands. He had to exchange them for true origin stones and godly metal to improve the divine demon sword. In terms of merit, he had killed many beings of the netherworld. There were also quite a few at the low extreme of the Sun-Moon tier, which was enough for him to retire. Of course, once they retired, they could still return to the two-realm battlefield. Moreover, they could come and go with even more freedom. They would not have to worry about not being able to leave without enough contribution points, as they would be treated as deserters and executed in public. Half a day later, Ling Han returned to Wolf Fong City. The first thing he did was to head to the main hall of the military headquarters to exchange his contribution points. He tossed out the corpses of the netherworld beings one by one and quickly calculated the total value of the contribution points. There were other uses for these corpses. Some almighty beings wanted to use these corpses to figure out the difference between the cultivation techniques of the netherworld and the immortal realm. This was not a futile effort. Rather, it was very meaningful. Once the netherworld's cultivation technique was deciphered, one would be able to counter it. Even if the two of them were of equal strength, the situation would become one-sided. More importantly, the powerhouses were still researching how to free the martial practitioners of the God realm from being suppressed by the laws of heaven and earth of the netherworld in preparation for a full-scale invasion in the future. If the God realm was like that, then the netherworld would probably be like that as well. Ling Han felt very confused. Just who was invading whom in the two realms? From the information he had, neither side seemed to be good people. No one wanted to play the role of the victim. He shook his head. The present him was still too weak, and was completely unable to interfere in such a huge matter. He would first raise his cultivation level. After calculating his contribution points, aside from being able to retire, he had gained over 4,000 points. However, 4,000 points was really not enough for him to exchange for the things he needed at this stage. He could exchange for a large number of mountain river tier resources, but they were completely useless to him. Moreover, it was strictly forbidden to sell the things that could be exchanged for using contribution points in Wolf Fong City. Those who were caught would be sentenced to death. Ling Han decided not to exchange for now. In any case, he was a free man now. He would kill a few more netherworld beings and accumulate more contribution points in the future. He went to the auction house in the city. Being able to open an auction house in the two-realm battlefield not only required courage, but also powerful connections and strength. The Gold Origin auction house clearly possessed these characteristics. It was said that it belonged to the Jin clan, and the Jin clan was a super force that had been doing business for generations. They controlled an astonishing amount of resources, and together with the Treasure Forest Pavilion, they were known as the Twin Prodigies. Ling Han entered the auction house, and after taking out the Realm Spirit Stone, he immediately attracted the auctioneer, who directly discussed the details of the auction with him. Such a large Realm Spirit Stone could be auctioned for a good price. Thus, the auction house decided not to rush to auction it. Instead, they wanted to spread the news as much as possible so that more elites could participate in the auction. Of course, the higher the cultivation level, the more astonishing the wealth. Ling Han did not mind waiting for a few more days. He took out another alchemical pill and asked the auctioneer to auction it while he was at it. The auction house charged a 15% processing fee for the auction of the realm spirit stone. One could imagine how astronomical this would be. Thus, the auction house decided to be generous and auction off these scattered alchemical pills for Ling Han for free. This would take about a month to prepare. Ling Han thought for a moment and then accepted the auction house's invitation. He stayed in the auction house for the next few days. He continued to concoct alchemical pills and cultivate. In another 20 or so days, the Black Tower would allow him to temper his body with the immortal flames for the second time. How pitiful! When there was no one around, Ling Han had reverted to his infant form. This was really too displeasing. He simply spent all his energy on alchemical pills. Even if he had endless cultivation resources, it would take him at least 10,000 years to accumulate origin power for one minor level if he cultivated bitterly. Thus, there was not much meaning in him cultivating bitterly. In any case, he had the Berserk Blood Spirit pill, so consuming pills was the way to go. For example, some prodigies could reach the peak stage of the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier in a few hundred or a few thousand years. Obviously, they had obtained night grass. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to advance so quickly if they simply relied on holding true origin stones and cultivating bitterly. Prodigies were mainly reflected in their comprehension of cultivation level. If a mediocre person was given Berserk Blood Spirit pill, so what if he reached the peak stage of the low extreme after consuming 4 pills? He would not be able to comprehend the regulations of heaven and earth in the next 1 million years. He would only die of old age. Over 20 days later, Small Tower informed Ling Han that he could undergo the second tempering of his body with the immortal flames. Previously, he had always been looking forward to this, but when this day really arrived, Ling Han was a little afraid. Thinking about that experience, it was really terrifying. His body had been burned to ashes, and only a wisp of his divine sense remained. But for the sake of becoming stronger, Ling Han still gritted his teeth and resolutely threw himself into the furnace. This tempering process took another 3 days and 3 nights. Ling Han was fresh out of the furnace, so he naturally became a small infant again. However, he had not grown much in these 3 months, so returning to his original form was naturally not a big loss. Not bad. The toughness of my skin, flesh, and godly bones have improved slightly. Ling Han nodded. The key is still rising from the ashes. Now that I have really suffered fatal injuries, there is a 1% chance that I can rising from the ashes. Not only will my injuries be healed, but I will also be able to return to my peak condition. Chapter 1265. The biggest difference between rising from the ashes and indestructible true fluid was that indestructible true fluid could only heal injuries, while rising from the ashes could allow Ling Han to recover to his peak condition. Just think about it. 2 people were evenly matched and both were wounded in battle, both on the brink of death. However, one of them suddenly rose from the ashes and recovered to his peak condition. Wouldn't the other party only be able to cry? No wonder immortal phoenixes were the most top-tier immortal beasts. Just this ability alone was enough to make countless elites tremble in fear. Before they made a move, they would have to consider whether they could withstand the opponent's continuous attacks. Unfortunately, there was only a 1% chance of success at present. However, it had to be known that this was the most supreme and core secret technique of the Celestial Phoenix tribe. Being able to allow Ling Han to grasp a portion of it at the Sun-Moon tier was an astonishing feat. Ling Han didn't leave the Black Tower. Instead, he swallowed a Berserk Blood Spirit pill and refined it under the reincarnation tree. 3 days later, his cultivation level reached the peak stage of the low extreme, and he would need another 1 or 2 months to stabilize his cultivation level, and he would be able to break through to the medium extreme. Of course, he had to comprehend under the reincarnation tree for these 1 or 2 months. Otherwise, without 20 or 30 years of accumulation, how could he touch the barrier to the next cultivation level? Ling Han didn't have time to break through at the moment. The auction was about to begin. He hadn't gone out for a long time either, and planned to go out for a walk. On the other side, The old ginseng and rabbit couldn't bear the loneliness of the Black Tower and insisted on going out for some fresh air and relaxation. Most importantly, one wanted to steal spiritual medicines to eat, and the other had to be careful of the women in Wolf Fong City. Fortunately, this was Cloud Apex Planet, where demonic beasts and the spirits of the 5 elements lived in harmony with humans. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be able to return after leaving. Meanwhile, Ling Han came to a restaurant. He wanted to know if there had been any major events recently, and it was naturally the fastest way to gather information in restaurants. Many people like to blabber, and showing off exclusive information was actually a good way to make their presence known. He calmed down and listened, and soon he obtained a lot of information. Some people were bragging, saying that they had killed many elites of the Netherworld, but he was only at the Mountain River tier, and it was obvious how unreliable this claim was. Some people were talking about the auction this time, and the Realm Spirit Stone was also said to be as big as a bull's head. It was truly a rumor. Others talked about the 2 Realm Prodigy Gathering. Have you guys heard? It's almost time for the 2 Realm Prodigy Gathering. Of course. Those who can participate in the 2 Realm Prodigy Gathering are all supreme geniuses. They are super geniuses that only appear once in tens of thousands of years. Not just tens of thousands of years, but at least hundreds of thousands of years. Right? Are we entering the Mountain River Forest or the Sun Moon Valley this time? I remember that it was the Sun Moon Valley last time, so it should be the Mountain River Forest this time. Actually, the Mountain River Forest is the fairest. It can truly show the difference between geniuses of different cultivation levels. Not necessarily. Some people have cultivated to perfection at the Mountain River tier, but they might not be able to do the same at the Sun Moon tier. The more they talked, the more agitated they became, and they almost started fighting. Ling Han was confused, but the table beside him just so happened to be filled with an old man and a young man. The young man was just as confused as Ling Han, so the old man explained. The Mountain River Forest and the Sun Moon Valley are both mystery lands in the 2 Realm battlefield, and they are very strange. No matter what cultivation level you are, even if you are a saint, your cultivation will be weakened to the Mountain River tier after entering the Mountain River Forest, and your cultivation will be restricted to the Sun Moon tier after entering the Sun Moon Valley. Only now did Ling Han come to a realization, and he breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. If they fought in the Mountain River Forest this time, then he would have cultivated to the peak stage of the pinnacle level of the Mountain River tier, and also reached perfection in each of the previous cultivation levels. In a battle of equals, he would not lose to anyone. On the other hand, if they fought in the Sun Moon Valley, he would naturally be at a great disadvantage against those who had cultivated to this level, and he might not even be able to withstand a single exchange. Of course, there were still less than 3 years, and he could continue to raise his cultivation level, but to reach the peak stage of the pinnacle level was very, very difficult. For there to be such a strange place, it should be caused by the conflict between the 2 worlds. So what if you are a saint? If you are cultivating in this heaven and earth, you will have to be restricted by this heaven and earth, Ling Han said in his mind. Hey, have you guys heard of something big? A man suddenly shouted loudly. He was asking if the others had heard, but his proud expression was clearly saying, "You guys don't know, right? I have exclusive news." What news? Many people asked. This man was dressed in black, and his foot-long hair was tied up. His chest was half naked, and there was a kind of valiant aura about him. When he saw that everyone's eyes were fixed on him, he couldn't help but feel a great sense of vanity in his heart. He raised his bowl of wine, and began to drink in large gulps. Just the day before yesterday, a grandson of great General Xie went to the Purple Moon Army and wanted to take someone away. In the end, he was kicked out, and his face was almost swollen. What? Many people couldn't help but laugh. Is this person crazy? He actually dared to go to the Purple Moon Army to take someone away? Doesn't he know that the Purple Moon Divine Maiden is the most protective? Yet Ling Han was stunned. Great General Xie's grandson. Then it had to be Xie Donglai. He knew that the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden had come to the 2 Realm battlefield, and was also in the Purple Moon Army. Hold on, even Great General Xie couldn't stretch his hands into the 2 Realm battlefield. Although there was no secret in this world that would last forever, it was impossible that Xie Donglai could find the heavenly phoenix divine maiden so quickly. Unless someone told on him, Ling Han immediately thought of Zhu Liun. She was a close friend of the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, so she should know some things about the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, including why she had come to the two-realm battlefield. Ling Han couldn't help but feel killing intent. Weren't you just pushing him into a pit of fire? The people at the neighboring tables couldn't help but shiver. Ling Han's killing intent was too frightening, and it also possessed a sliver of heaven's might, causing fear to rise from the bottom of their hearts. They all stood up to pay the bill, not daring to stay any longer. However, the others were not affected, and were still chatting loudly there. Who is that descendant of the Xie clan? Someone couldn't help but ask. He. The man in black clothes whetted their appetite, and then said, Xie Donglai. What? It's actually Xie Donglai. That's an extremely important existence among the younger generation of the Xie clan. That's right. He has only cultivated for a few tens of thousands of years, and is already in the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier. It is said that he has a chance to break through to the heavenly body tier within 1,000,000 years. Sigh, it would be great if I could break through to the medium extreme of the Sun-Moon tier within 1,000,000 years. Otherwise, I would have to straighten my legs and become a ghost. Haha, kill more demons of the netherworld, accumulate merit points, and after exchanging them for enough resources, breaking through to the medium extreme would definitely not be difficult. Everyone nodded. A great many people here had actually long since retired, but they still lingered here, unwilling to leave, because they wanted to take a gamble and break through to a higher cultivation level. Some people had indeed succeeded, but even more people were left here forever, their corpses uncollected. Venerable Trinity should have obtained a fortuitous encounter here, and successfully advanced into the Eternal River tier. Unfortunately, he was killed by a single punch from Hunyeo. The Purple Moon Divine Maiden is really domineering, not even giving face to the Xie clan. Who doesn't know that the Purple Moon Divine Maiden is protective and loves her soldiers like they are her daughters? Even if Great General Xie personally came forward, he might not be able to make the Purple Moon Divine Maiden back down, what more when it's only Xie Donglai? Everyone nodded. What about me, Xie Donglai? A cold laugh rang out, and a tall and slender man suddenly appeared at the top of the stairs. His hands were clasped behind his back, and he exuded an aura that was unique to elites. Chapter 1266. The restaurant instantly fell deathly silent. That was Xie Donglai. Even though everyone knew that it was forbidden to fight in Wolffang City, who was willing to be targeted by Xie Donglai. This could mean that they had become enemies with Great General Xie. How many people would be willing to bear such a terrifying consequence? To say nothing of anything else, as long as news spread that they had offended the Xie clan, how many people would be willing to associate with them? Moreover, Xie Donglai was an elite at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier, and he was even more so a prodigy. He had a very high chance of advancing to the heavenly body tier. Just him alone was enough to cause many people to be willing to offend him. Xie Donglai's eyes swept over the crowd, and no one dared to meet his gaze. He was like an invincible emperor. He chuckled coldly. They actually dared to gossip about him behind his back? These lowly commoners were really ignorant. If it weren't for the fact that this was Wolffang City, he would have definitely killed everyone here. He faltered slightly because there was a young man who was still leisurely drinking wine, as if he hadn't noticed his presence at all. This young man was very eye-catching, like a crane among chickens. This was because the tables around him were all empty, and compared to the bustling scene in the restaurant, he seemed completely out of place. Xie Donglai strode over, and there were actually two elders following behind him. However, they maintained a considerable distance from Xie Donglai, and followed him from afar as if they weren't traveling together at all. He sat down opposite Ling Han, and the aura of the consummate level spread out, giving Ling Han a powerful pressure. Ling Han acted as if he hadn't seen this, and killing intent was already boiling in his heart. However, firstly, he couldn't kill Xie Donglai at the moment, and secondly, it wasn't convenient to do so here. Thus, he was only thinking about how to make this guy suffer a little. Since he dared to pester his wife, there was naturally no reason for him to let him off lightly. "Sir, how should I address you?" Xie Donglai asked, a hint of surprise in his eyes. This was because this young man was actually unfazed by his aura. He was clearly only at the peak stage of the low extreme, so how could his soul be so resolute? "An Iba," Ling Han replied casually. Xie Donglai's IQ was obviously very high, and a furious expression immediately appeared on his face. This brat actually dared to mock him. He humphed and said, "Sir, is it really okay to insult others as soon as you open your mouth? Idiot, you sat down without being invited. If I don't scold you, who am I going to scold?" Ling Han scoffed. He had not wanted to come into conflict with Xie Donglai so quickly, but who asked Xie Donglai to ask for a scolding from him? Xie Donglai's beautiful single phoenix eye narrowed involuntarily, exuding an almost tangible killing intent. This young man was truly audacious. He even dared to insult him. He was the eldest grandson of the Xie family, so he didn't really have any scruples. He wanted to make a move as soon as his killing intent rose. "Young master," the two elders said softly to Xie Donglai. They had originally been standing at the foot of the stairs. However, they both took a step forward and arrived behind Xie Donglai. "If you fight in Wolffang City, you will have to pay back 10 times the amount of damage you've caused. Of course, if he killed someone, he would only have to pay with his life. He wouldn't whip the corpse." This was a rule that several Eternal River tier elites had worked together to formulate. Even if Xie Donglai violated it, he would similarly not be spared. Though Great General Xie's reputation was very useful, Xie Donglai did not have that kind of prestige. If it was Great General Xie who killed someone here, the Purple Moon Divine Maiden and the others would probably only protest a little. They definitely wouldn't shed all pretense of cordiality with Great General Xie. Similarly, even if the Wolffang City killed Xie Donglai, Great General Xie similarly wouldn't fall out with several Eternal River tier elites for the sake of a descendant. Thus, it was better to abide by some rules. Xie Donglai naturally understood this logic and could only suppress his anger. His heart was exploding with fury. Since he was young, there had really been very few people who dared to disobey him like this. Even if there had been, grass would have already grown on their graves. First, there was a heavenly phoenix maiden that dared to run away from her marriage, and now there was a young man that dared to insult him. Was this world about to be turned upside down? He stood up and said, "Sir, I'll remember you." With his eyesight, he naturally could tell that Ling Han was currently using a disguise, but that was fine. What he recognized was Ling Han's aura. This was something that was very difficult for cultivators to change, unless they changed to cultivate another cultivation technique. Ling Han smiled calmly and said, "You should have scrammed long ago. You're affecting my appetite." Xie Donglai's expression involuntarily darkened, and he wanted to fly into a rage again. However, he was a prodigy of this generation after all, so he forcibly suppressed his impulse. He only felt that he couldn't stay here any longer. Otherwise, he would explode in fury. Cultivators should settle debts of gratitude and enmity as they pleased, and if they were displeased, they should use their fists. Holding it in like this made him feel very uncomfortable. He turned and left. Meanwhile, the two elders stared at Ling Han for a good while, and then also left. The restaurant gradually regained its sound of conversation, but after the incident just now, everyone's voices had also become much quieter. As they spoke, they walked toward Ling Han. They all felt that this person was extremely audacious, actually daring to oppose the Xie clan. An elder shook his head and said, "He's still young after all, and can't control his temper. Right now, this is Wolffang City, so he naturally doesn't dare to make a move. However, can he hide in Wolffang City for the rest of his life?" He felt that Ling Han's actions were far too unwise. Ling Han hadn't come here to eat or drink in the first place. Instead, he had come here to understand the recent events. Seeing this, he didn't have any intention of continuing to stay here. He paid the bill and then returned to the auction house. There were only 2 days left until the auction. Meanwhile, the old ginseng and rabbit were like fish in water. They spent their days outside, and neither of them was willing to come back. However, Ling Han wasn't worried. These two were both incredibly slippery, and unless a heavenly body tier elite made a move, it would really be impossible to capture them. 2 days quickly passed, and Ling Han brought the Realm Spirit Stone to the front hall. He had already handed the alchemical pills to the auction house, but the value of the Realm Spirit Stone was too great, so he kept it by his side, and would only hand it over on the day of the auction. He came to the front hall, and found a worker, asking him to inform the person in charge of the Jin clan. Just as he was waiting, he saw a familiar figure appear. Who else could it be but Xie Donglai? With Xie Donglai's status and wealth, it wasn't strange for him to participate in this kind of auction. Moreover, he was currently at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier, so he definitely urgently wanted to break through to the heavenly body tier or even the pinnacle level. Thus, he was determined to obtain this palm-sized Realm Spirit Stone. When Xie Donglai arrived at Ling Han, his handsome face immediately darkened. He chuckled coldly and said, "Heh, the Gold Origin auction house is really becoming more and more despicable these days. Can any random person come here?" Xie, are you referring to? A worker from the auction house was following beside Xie Donglai. Because his status was relatively high, the auction house also attached more importance to him and had sent out a person of considerable status. This person's name was Jin Xian, and he had always wanted to climb up and obtain a higher status. Thus, Xie Donglai had become the person he wanted to curry favor with. If he could form a connection with the Xie clan, his status in the clan would definitely skyrocket. "I hate this brat." Xie Donglai pointed unceremoniously at Ling Han. "I understand." Jin Xian nodded and said to the workers on his left and right, "What are you all standing around for? Hurry up and chase this person out." He hadn't seen Ling Han before, so he didn't know that Ling Han was the big customer who was supplying the Realm Spirit Stone this time. Otherwise, he definitely wouldn't have said such words. But now, he had made a huge mistake. Chapter 1268. Young Master Han Jinming actually called this young man Young Master Han? One had to know that even when facing Xie Donglai, Jin Ming only casually called him Young Master Xie and didn't take him seriously. But facing Ling Han, he first clasped his hands in greeting and then called him Young Master Han. How much face was this? What he didn't know was that Jin Ming didn't have to be so polite, but who asked him to kick Ling Han out? Now, he wanted to invite Ling Han back again, so how could he not be polite? He couldn't help but be shocked. Thinking back to when Ling Han asked him if he would regret it, he naturally scoffed, but now he really regretted it. Who was this young man? Why did Jin Ming hold him in such high regard? "Lord Jin." Ling Han immediately stood up. Jin Ming was a heavenly body tier elite, so if he sat casually, it would be too arrogant. Jin Ming nodded and said, "I'm really sorry I didn't manage my subordinates well and caused young Master Han to suffer." Ling Han only smiled and looked at Jin Xian and asked, "Who is this?" Jin Xian couldn't help but grimace, thinking, "I just kicked you out, how can you not recognize me after turning around? This guy is clearly mocking me." If Jin Ming wasn't here, he probably would have slapped him. After cultivating for more than 2 million years, he had also reached the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier. In his eyes, suppressing a low extreme was naturally a very easy and pleasant thing. Now, however, his expression darkened. What did Jin Ming say? Jin Xian, apologized to young Master Han, Jin Ming said in a low voice. Here it came as expected. Jin Xian was unwilling to accept, and said, "May I ask Lord Jin Ming, where did I go wrong?" If he casually apologized, where would he put his face? The other party wanted face, so he didn't want it either. Although Jin Ming's status was higher than his, he was also a member of the Jin clan, so he could still disobey unreasonable orders. Otherwise, if this matter was brought to the clan's law enforcement hall, who would be able to stand? Humph! Jin Ming sneered. He really wanted to slap this idiot to death. He didn't have any ability, and only knew how to fight for power. He didn't see the big picture at all, and his vision was frighteningly narrow. He said, "This is young Master Han. He is the person who provided the Realm Spirit Stones for this auction." Jin Xian's heart shook. Only now did he understand why Jin Ming valued Ling Han so much. It turned out that he was a big client. It could be said that the reason why this auction was so grand was because of the palm-sized boundary spirit stone. This was because the larger the realm spirit stone, the more complete the laws within it would be, and the easier it would be for a martial artist to comprehend it. Therefore, even if 10 realm spirit stones added together were as big as this one, in terms of value, it was still far from being worth it. However, the other party was only a seller. Was there a need to give him such a high standard? The other party was only lucky to have obtained such a large piece of realm spirit stone. Was there a need to lower the price? Hurry up and apologize. Jin Ming was getting a bit impatient, and he wanted to chase him back to the main clan. Keeping such an idiot by his side was just more of a hindrance than a help. Jin Xian's expression flickered between red and green. However, he still compromised and said, "I've offended you just now. Please forgive me, young Master Han." If he angered Ling Han and cancelled the auction for the realm spirit stones, the Jin clan would undoubtedly become the laughingstock of the world. Moreover, as one of the main culprits, he would definitely not be able to escape the clan's punishment. Thus, after considering this, he still backed down. Ling Han shook his head and said, "I don't know you." Jin Xian couldn't help but fly into a rage. The meaning of Ling Han's words was very simple. He didn't accept his apology. He was merely at the low extreme of the sun-moon tier. What did he have to be so arrogant about? Jin Ming spoke up and said in a low voice, "Jin Xian, if you chased a level 8 alchemist out of the auction house, what do you think you should do to appease him?" Jin Xian faltered upon hearing this. What did Jin Ming mean? Could it be that Ling Han was a level 8 alchemist? What a joke! How old was this guy? He was definitely not over 1,000 years old. He could be considered a prodigy in martial art, but if he was a grandmaster of alchemy, how could one improve in alchemy? One had to refine cauldrons of alchemical pills one after another. That was a matter of time. It was completely different from martial art. If one was lucky enough to eat a divine pill, they might immediately jump from a mortal to the heavenly body tier. A level 8 alchemist who was not even 1,000 years old. What a joke! Do you think I'm joking with you? Jin Ming smirked coldly. If that weren't the case, how could he possibly treat Ling Han with such respect? So what if he was a big seller? The gap between the sun-moon tier and the heavenly body tier was as wide as the heavens and earth. Jin Xian's heart jolted. If Jin Ming was joking with him, that would be a joke in itself. Could it be that Ling Han was really a level 8 alchemist? His expression changed drastically. If news of him kicking a level 8 alchemist out of the auction house spread, he would really lose a layer of skin. Alchemists had a transcendent status. Furthermore, this group was relatively united. If you offended an alchemist, especially if you offended him for no reason at all, the entire group of alchemists would view you as an enemy. At that time, not a single alchemist would be willing to sell their alchemical pills to the Gold Origin auction house. That would be a massive blow to the clan. And as the Fuse, the main culprit, he would definitely be severely punished by the clan. When he thought of this, he couldn't help but shiver. His legs weakened and he knelt down, saying, "Young Master Han, I was blind. Everything is my fault. Please forgive me." He continuously kowtowed, tears and snot streaming down his face. Jin Ming was so furious that he almost slapped this guy to death. He had asked Jin Xian to apologize, but this wasn't the way he had done it. Now that he was kneeling, not only was he losing face, but he was also losing face for the Jin clan. This idiot, he was really an idiot. He definitely couldn't stay here any longer. "Oh, so it's you." Ling Han clapped his hands. It was as if he had suddenly remembered who Jin Xian was. Jin Xian wiped away his cold sweat. It seemed like he had managed to deal with this. As long as Ling Han stopped being stubborn and let the auction proceed smoothly, he would apologize and pretend that this matter had never happened. However, he didn't know that Jin Ming had already sentenced him to a death sentence. It wouldn't be long before he would be forced back to the main clan. With a few words of criticism, he would no longer be able to make a name for himself in the Jin clan. He would only be able to live a mediocre life. Young Master Han, please. Jin Ming couldn't be bothered to be angry, and he smiled at Ling Han. Milord, please. Ling Han was also very polite. The two of them walked side by side towards the auction house. Ling Han deliberately lagged behind to show his respect for an elite of the heavenly body tier. This made Jin Ming very satisfied. This young man wasn't arrogant because of his talent, nor did he push his luck. Meanwhile, Jin Xian followed behind. He still had to properly establish a relationship with Ling Han and curry favor with him. In his eyes, now that Ling Han had the halo of a level 8 alchemist, his value instantly skyrocketed. Chapter 1269. Jin Ming was a powerful figure after all. Seeing that Ling Han was no longer venting his anger, he took the Realm Spirit Stone and left first. Meanwhile, Jin Xian eagerly accompanied Ling Han, wanting to serve him well. A level 8 alchemist was very, very awesome. Ling Han was much clearer than Jin Xian. Jin Ming clearly looked disgusted, so it was clear that Jin Xian couldn't stay here for long. Thus, he couldn't be bothered to deal with Jin Xian, and only dealt with him casually. Young Master Han, please. Jin Xian wore a fawning smile as he respectfully led Ling Han to the Earthgrade private room on the 3rd floor. In the Gold Origin auction house, private rooms were divided into 2 levels. One was the Heaven Grade, and the other was the Earth Grade. The Heaven Grade was basically always empty because only Eternal River Tier elites had the right to sit inside. He was an elite of the Eternal River Tier, and not his descendant or successor. The Earth Grade had a wider range. For example, the descendants of Heavenly Body Tier elites, Eternal River Tier elites, or those with special achievements in alchemy or tool refinement. Thus, there were only a few Heaven Grade rooms, but there were as many as 2 levels of Earth Grade rooms. But since there were 2 levels, there was a difference. The upper level was definitely slightly better. Jin Xian led Ling Han to the Earth Grade private room on the higher level, the same as Xie Donglai's. This showed how much importance he attached to Ling Han. The door of a private room opened, and a handsome young man walked out. It was Xie Donglai. He saw that Jin Xian and Ling Han had come together, and especially that Jin Xian was half a step behind with a fawning expression. This scene instantly caused him to be dumbfounded, and his mind couldn't process what was going on. What was going on? Wasn't this guy chased out? Why had he returned? Furthermore, he looked like he had been personally invited back by Jin Xian. This two-faced guy had just been calling him brother and saying all kinds of things about taking care of each other, and now he turned around and sold him out. He was too fucking shameless. Xie Donglai's expression immediately darkened. He humphed and said, "Brother Jin, I need an explanation." A conflicted expression appeared on Jin Xian's face. He didn't want to offend Xie Donglai either. However, Ling Han and Xie Donglai were opposing each other, so he could only choose one of them. If he tried to curry favor with both of them, then he would definitely end up empty-handed. He gritted his teeth. Since Xie Dong was already here, he could do whatever he wanted. What explanation do I need? He said stubbornly. What relationship do I have with Heir Xie? Heir Xie Donglai couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. She's drawing a clear line between us so quickly? He was both angry and curious. It was impossible for Jin Xian to fall out with him for no reason. For a petty person like him, he would only turn against the wind when there was a profit to be made. In that case, Ling Han should have a powerful background. But what was his background? He was even more powerful than him, the descendant of General Xie. He finally revealed a trace of caution towards Ling Han. To be able to become an extremely important member of the younger generation of the Xie clan, not only did he have talent, but he was also extremely intelligent. "Who are you?" he asked. Jin Xian immediately took the lead and said, "This is Ling Han, young Master Han." Young Master Han is a level 8 alchemist. Providing realm spirit stones could only mean that Ling Han was a big customer, and there was no increase in his status. However, it was different for a level 8 alchemist. Oh! Xie Donglai's expression changed slightly. Such a young level 8 alchemist. The status of alchemists was extraordinary, and was half a head higher than that of their corresponding cultivators. And he was a martial art prodigy, so he naturally didn't have to pay too much attention to alchemists of the same level. However, Ling Han was also an alchemy prodigy, and this kind of prodigy was even rarer, so he was naturally more valued. There was no lack of martial art prodigies in this world, and one would pop up from time to time. However, alchemy and tool method were different. These required the accumulation of countless years, and it was extremely difficult for a prodigy to appear. No wonder Jin Xian wanted to change sides. However, did he not know that he was not as simple as a martial art prodigy, but also the descendant of great General Xie? He had an eternal river tear supporting him from behind. However, why did the name Ling Han sound a little familiar? So he's also an alchemist, Xie Donglai said with a cold smirk. However, no matter how arrogant he was, he dared not mock alchemists, because this group possessed extremely great power. If he rashly offended this group of alchemists, he would probably be criticized when he returned, and might even be banished to the cold palace. A good dog doesn't block the way, Ling Han said calmly. Xie Donglai was tongue-tied. You actually dare to call me a dog? However, it was true that he was standing in the middle of the road, blocking the path of Ling Han and Jin Xian. There was nothing wrong with saying that, though his choice of words was a little too harsh. Then Grandmaster Ling has also been affected by the Realm Spirit Stone, right? Xie Donglai decided to avoid mentioning Ling Han's identity as an alchemist. This was a more sensitive matter, and it was best not to cause a conflict in public. When no one was around, he would secretly kill him, and then wouldn't that solve the problem once and for all? A level 8 alchemist had come to the auction house at this time, and 99% of it was because of that palm-sized Realm Spirit Stone. That was a precious treasure that could help one comprehend Tao. In terms of wealth, such a young level 8 alchemist was definitely no match for him. A hint of a smile appeared on Ling Han's face, and he said, "So what? How with me here, you'd better give up," Xie Donglai said haughtily. "As long as I make a move, that Realm Spirit Stone will definitely be mine." Right now, he could only use this method to deal a blow to Ling Han. Pooh! Jin Xian almost laughed out loud. He hurriedly covered his mouth with his hand. You don't you know yet? That Realm Spirit Stone was auctioned by Ling Han. The fiercer you snatched it, the fiercer you gave him money. He had seen suckers before, but he was the first one to be so pleased with himself and feel that he was bursting at the seams. Ling Han's expression did not change, and he said, "That's not necessarily true." "Stupid bird, are you sure you have the wealth to do that?" "Stupid bird." Xie Donglai's face twitched. Just then, Ling Han had insulted him as a dog, and now he was insulting him as a bird. This brat was truly hateful. He chuckled coldly in his mind. You can't stay in Wolf Fong City forever. The moment you leave, it'll be the moment you die. He had made up his mind to show off his prowess in front of Ling Han after winning the bid for the Realm Spirit Stone. After this thought flashed through his mind, he retreated into the private room and let Ling Han and Luo Bingyun pass. Ling Han strode past. When he passed the gate, he said, "You know when to advance and when to retreat. You can be considered a good dog." Xie Donglai almost drew his saber and attacked. Fortunately, there were 2 old men in the private room who forcefully pressed him down. Otherwise, he really wouldn't be able to endure it. As a descendant of the Xie family, he was used to messing around. Now, he even had to tie his hands and feet when he wanted to kill someone. He felt so fucking vexed. We have to kill this guy, Xie Donglai thought to himself. Then, he would return to the imperial capital and ask Great General Xie to act and think of a way to get the Heavenly Phoenix Maiden back. This slut dared to run away from the wedding. Humph, how was he going to deal with her? Chapter 1270. Ling Han entered the private room, and Jin Xian naturally followed him in as well. He chatted with him here and there, trying his best to find a common topic of conversation. However, when it came to martial art, though his cultivation level was slightly higher, his understanding of the regulations of heaven and earth was far less profound than Ling Han's. When it came to alchemy, he was completely a layman, and when it came to ambition, he was only filled with selfish desires. How could they talk about going together? There was no helping it, so he could only talk about things that men would definitely be interested in. For example, he had just gone to the Jade Spring Pavilion a few days ago, and how impressive her martial arts were, which made him feel like he was walking on air the next morning. In Wolffang City, there were naturally brothels. Furthermore, the girls working there were all genuine immortals, at least at the Mountain River tier. However, they clearly had this kind of ability, so why did they do such things? Money came quickly. All the men who made a living here had their heads tied to their waists at all times. Thus, their hearts were slightly twisted, and under great pressure, they naturally wanted to vent. Moreover, as long as they didn't die here, the profits they could earn were also very great. Merit could be exchanged for large amounts of resources, and picking up a realm spirit stone was even more profitable. Thus, most of the men here were also generous with their money. Selling here, firstly, was safe, and secondly, the income was astonishing. Naturally, many women were willing to be oppressed by thousands of men. Otherwise, where could a woman at the Mountain River tier get so many cultivation resources? Ling Han's thoughts ran wild, and he deliberately spaced out because Jin Xian really didn't have much depth. He actually began to talk about the details of prostitution, vividly, and his spittle flew everywhere. Moreover, his voice became louder and louder, and even the private room couldn't hear him. Noisy! With a cold humph, a white jade-like hand appeared out of thin air and slapped at Jin Xian. Pa! There was a crisp sound, and Jin Xian instantly fell silent. He covered the corner of his mouth, his face filled with shock. He had been directly struck dumb. One had to realize that no matter how unbearable his character was, he was still an elite at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier, but the other party hadn't even appeared, and a slap from who knew where had knocked out all his teeth. If the other party really wanted to kill him, it wouldn't be difficult for her to kill him with a single slap. Moreover, the person hadn't appeared, so who could prove that it was her who had killed him? It was her because the hand was white and slender. It should be a woman's hand. Moreover, that clear rebuke was clearly a woman's voice. Ling Han was also shocked. He couldn't figure out where the hand had come from. Of course, this hand wasn't a physical one. Instead, it was formed from the condensed power of Pali by an elite. However, it was still able to appear as if it was right in front of their eyes even though they were separated by a wall. Moreover, it was capable of ripping out the teeth of an elite at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier. This power was far too terrifying. At least the heavenly body tier. Ling Han secretly compared this person to Empress Luanxing, yet he was completely unable to determine who was more powerful. This was because they were both much more powerful than he was. Two great seas were placed before his eyes, and both were boundless. How could he know which one was bigger? Moreover, this person's control of strength was extremely precise. After a single slap, his origin energy just happened to disperse, and it didn't leave behind a trace of fluctuation. Thus, if this person wanted to kill someone, it would be as easy as flipping his hand, and it would be impossible to pursue the matter. If his opponent was at the heavenly body tier, then he would probably have to be at least in the medium extreme to be able to suppress him like this. However, considering that this was the Gold Origin auction house, and he still dared to attack without any reservations in someone else's territory, the status of this person could possibly be even higher. Jin Xian was stunned by the slap. He had suffered such a huge loss, yet he actually didn't seek out Jin Ming for help. Instead, he slumped onto the chair as if he had become stupid. Ling Han was also happy to have some peace and quiet. He closed his eyes and took a small nap. He was thinking whether there was any way to make Xie Donglai stay here forever. Not long after, the auction began. Since it was an auction, it was naturally impossible that only one item would be auctioned. That large realm spirit stone was only the finale item and would be sold at the end. There were also many other good items for sale, such as various alchemical pills, godly metal, god tools, and even cultivation techniques and martial arts techniques. These were also very valuable. There were a few items that even Ling Han was interested in, but when he thought about it, any improvement would be inferior to the Divine Demon Sword, so he suppressed his desire and prioritized raising the Divine Demon Sword to level 6. He was also about to break through to the medium extreme. Only when the God Tool was at the same cultivation level as his own would he be able to use it more easily. The alchemical pills that he provided were also being auctioned, and they were quite popular. That was because the quality of his alchemical pills was too good. The same alchemical pill could have an additional 20%, 30%, or even 50% effect, so it naturally became a hot topic for many people. Ling Han made some calculations. Merely the sale of these alchemical pills would bring him a relatively generous profit. However, compared to the Realm Spirit Stone later, the difference was far, far too great. When the auction was about halfway through, that small Realm Spirit Stone was first taken out for bidding. After a fierce battle, this Realm Spirit Stone was sold for a high price of 4 million true origin stones. This was extremely astonishing. Normally speaking, a Realm Spirit Stone of this size could only be sold for around 3 million. However, it had to be noted that things like Realm Spirit Stones had always been priceless. Thus, once there was a battle, it would not be strange for a high price to appear. After this round of bidding, everyone could guess that the final Realm Spirit Stone would definitely be sold for an astonishingly high level. It was said that it was palm-sized, at least 10 times larger than this one. Being 10 times larger didn't just mean that it was 10 times more expensive. As mentioned before, the larger the Realm Spirit Stone, the more complete the regulations of heaven and earth would be, and the price would increase by at least 10 times. 300 to 400 million. After this price flashed through everyone's minds, many people sucked in a breath of cold air. This price was really ridiculously high. However, Ling Han was filled with anticipation. Raising the quality of his Divine Demon Sword would require a vast amount of godly metal, and purchasing godly metal would require a large number of true origin stones. He wanted nothing more than to sell this Realm Spirit Stone for 20 billion or 30 billion. Time slowly passed, and the auction was also nearing its end. Finally, that large Realm Spirit Stone was brought out. 10 million, 20 million. The moment this treasure appeared, it immediately triggered a fierce bidding war. There was no need to fan the flames, and the price soared rapidly. Of course, this was also because the current price was too low, and it was far from the bottom line that everyone was willing to pay. The price continued to soar, and when it reached 200 million, the number of people bidding instantly decreased by more than half. However, as long as there were 2 people who didn't give up, the price could naturally continue to climb. Ling Han was extremely satisfied. His expectations were already set at 200 million, and now, even a little bit more made him unable to contain his joy. However, after reaching this price, there were fewer and fewer people bidding, and the increase in the price also became smaller and smaller. Thus, after a long time, the price finally broke through the 300 million mark. This was more or less the final price of this Realm Spirit Stone. 310 million. Xie Donglai's proud voice traveled out from a few rooms away. Chapter 1272. With the Purple Moon Divine Maiden's appearance, everyone naturally could only step back and give way to this elite. Xie Donglai stared at Ling Han, thinking that though he didn't win the Realm Spirit Stone, the other didn't either. Furthermore, he lost to an Eternal River Tier elite, so this was a matter of course. After the Purple Moon Divine Maiden completed the payment, Jin Ming personally walked towards Ling Han, handing over a spatial bag, and said, "Young Master Han, this is the auction money. It's a total of 384 million true origin stones." Pooh. Xie Donglai immediately spluttered. Hold on, Ling Han wasn't the buyer, but the seller. Over 300 million, what did this mean? That large Realm Spirit Stone was sold by Ling Han. Otherwise, how could he have earned over 300 million? His expression changed drastically, feeling as if someone had given him a heavy slap, incredibly uncomfortable. So it turned out that he had been the one causing the most trouble all along. He was brimming with confidence when he said that he would obtain the Realm Spirit Stones and show Ling Han his heroism. However, Ling Han was the seller of the realm's spirit stones. He continued to raise the price, yet in reality, he was working for Ling Han's benefit. Because of this, he had even offended an eternal river tier elite. He really was an idiot. Xie Donglai didn't reflect on himself at all, only feeling that Ling Han was too despicable. All along, the other knew everything, yet didn't say anything, making him look for trouble. Despicable, despicable, despicable. He was the descendant of great General Xie, and had the background of an eternal river tier elite. So what if the other was a level 8 alchemist? Compared to him, he wasn't even qualified to carry his shoes. Ling Han put away the spatial bag, not bothering to check its contents. "Young Master Han, why don't you count it?" Jin Ming asked with a smile. "I believe you, milord," Ling Han said with a smile. Jin Ming nodded. Though the Gold Origin auction house was known for its integrity, and there had never been a precedent of deceiving their customers, almost 400 million true origin stones was an astonishing wealth. Even heavenly body tier elites might be tempted, and it wouldn't be strange for them to play some tricks. But Ling Han trusted him so much, so he couldn't help but be very satisfied, feeling that this young man had great potential. "Are you that alchemist?" Purple Moon Goddess suddenly asked Ling Han. "I am indeed an alchemist." Ling Han nodded. "I heard that you're already at the 8th level," the Purple Moon Goddess asked again. "Yes." Ling Han didn't waste any more words. It was better not to play any tricks in front of such an expert. The Purple Moon Divine Maiden showed an expression of admiration, and said, "Your real age should not have reached 50, right? Not only have you advanced into the peak stage of the low extreme of the Sun-Moon tier in martial art, you have also reached level 8 in alchemy. This achievement is probably enough to look down on the whole immortal realm." What? Jin Ming and Xie Donglai both paled in shock. Their first reaction was that the Purple Moon Divine Maiden was wrong. How could there possibly be such a young martial art genius and alchemy grandmaster? Under 50, unthinkable. Utterly unthinkable. But would an eternal river tier elite be mistaken? Yet Ling Han's heart clenched. Elites were elites, after all. He was young, everyone knew this, but he could only determine that Sun-Moon tiers were below 1,000 years old, and heavenly body tiers could only determine that Sun-Moon tiers were below 100 years old. But she further limited it to below 50 years old. Putting aside the difference of 50 years, the low extreme of the Sun-Moon tier possessed a lifespan as high as 1 million years, and being able to make such an accurate judgment, her judgment was really frightening. If this continues, you might be able to advance into level 15 alchemist within 1,000 years. At that time, even I will have to ask you to concoct alchemical pills for me, the Purple Moon Divine Maiden said. Level 15 alchemist Ling Han calculated in his mind. The Purple Moon Divine Maiden should be in the high extreme of the Eternal River tier, which was why she needed a level 15 divine pill. Milord is too kind. However, if I reach level 15, I am willing to concoct alchemical pills for Milord unconditionally, Ling Han said. Oh! The Purple Moon Divine Maiden was surprised. Concocting alchemical pills unconditionally was not a small promise. The higher the level of an alchemist, the higher the price that had to be paid to ask him to concoct alchemical pills for them. Especially from level 9 onwards, the time required to concoct alchemical pills would become longer and longer, ranging from a few months to a few years. If it was a level 15 divine pill, concocting one time would require about 10 years. That would be equivalent to wasting 10 years of one's life. How much was the lifespan of a level 15 alchemist worth? Thus, if one wanted to ask a high-level alchemist to concoct alchemical pills for them, they would have to pay an extremely high price. But Ling Han actually said that he would concoct alchemical pills for her unconditionally. This was really too generous. Ling Han then said, "Milord, do you find this very strange? Actually, the reason is very simple. I have a female confidant who is currently in Milord's Purple Moon Army, and I only want to ask Milord to take care of her, which is why I am so generous." The Purple Moon Divine Maiden couldn't help but laugh loudly. Ling Han spoke the truth, and spoke of his own selfish intentions, which instead won her favor. She thought that this man was sincere, and more importantly, he was willing to sacrifice for his own woman. "Young man, come with me," she said. "Yes, milord." The two of them left, and Xie Donglai also wanted to follow, but with a casual wave of the purple moon divine maiden's hand, he was tossed to who knew where. "Young master." The two old servants hurriedly chased after that little black duck. Their mission was to protect Xie Donglai. The purple moon divine maiden was very interested in Ling Han, and asked about the matters between him and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. She also understood the grudge between him and Xie Donglai, and couldn't help but say, "Just let your little lover temporarily stay in my army. Even if Xie Donglai comes, so what? I'm not afraid of him." These words were said very domineeringly, and filled with lofty sentiments. "Many thanks, milord," Ling Han said sincerely. Before leaving Cloud Apex Planet, it should be the safest for the heavenly phoenix divine maiden to stay in the Purple Moon Army. When he had dealt with the 5 sects, they would return to the Great Ling Empire together. Who cared if you were Xie Donglai or Xie Donglai? Take this token. You can enter the Purple Moon Army once every month, and meet with your little lover. The Purple Moon divine maiden tossed an iron token to Ling Han. Ling Han was overjoyed. He could only see her once a month, but the camp of the Purple Moon Army never welcomed men. This was really breaking a precedent. The Purple Moon divine maiden waved a hand, and her figure shot through the air, instantly disappearing. Heavenly body tears could fly, and the speed of eternal river tears was naturally even more astonishing. Ling Han put away the token, and couldn't help but smile. If it was him who boldly entered the army camp, how shocked would the heavenly phoenix divine maiden be? However, now that he had money, he naturally had to buy godly metal without restraint. On the other hand, he also had to go into seclusion to accumulate comprehension in order to break through to the medium extreme. He once again returned to the auction house, and asked the other party to purchase godly metal above level 5 on his behalf. Ling Han himself was a level 8 alchemist, and added with the fact that the Purple Moon divine maiden seemed to be quite heavy, this naturally caused Jin Ming to value Ling Han even more. He gladly nodded in agreement, and did not even plan to take any fees from Ling Han. To be friends. That was what he said. There was naturally no harm in having one more friend. Ling Han naturally gladly accepted the other's kind intentions. He first went to see the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, and then went into seclusion. Chapter 1273. 2 months passed in an instant. Ling Han completed the accumulation of his cultivation level. Comprehending under the reincarnation tree was extremely helpful. He could break through to the medium extreme now, but he didn't start immediately. Instead, he went to the auction house first. Jin Ming had purchased a large amount of godly metal for him, and after consuming all of it, Ling Han had also gone from a wealthy man to a slightly wealthy man. He had spent close to 400 million true origin stones, but he was only left with a little over 300,000. However, the amount of level 5 godly metal that he had purchased was more or less enough for the divine demon sword to level up. He commanded the divine demon sword to continuously swallow godly metal. After half a day, there was only less than 5 kilograms of level 5 godly metal left, and the divine demon sword had also reached a state of satiation. It only had to eat another small piece of godly metal, and it would be able to complete the qualitative change from level 5 to level 6. Ling Han was in no hurry to take this step. Instead, he began to break through to the medium extreme himself. He wanted the divine demon sword to undergo another qualitative change during the heavenly tribulation, and they would experience the heavenly tribulation together, thereby increasing the might of the divine demon sword. As he comprehended under the reincarnation tree, time flew by like a dog. A month passed, and Ling Han had already comprehended Tao for 30 years. His figure flashed as he left the Black Tower. Long, dark clouds immediately interweaved in the skies, forming rolling thunderclouds. What was strange was that this time, there was not only blazing white lightning in the thunderclouds, but also black lightning. This was the two-realm battlefield, which was both the God realm and the Netherworld realm. Thus, this heavenly tribulation had the characteristics of both realms. Ling Han had long since left Wolf Fong City. In any case, he was comprehending in the Black Tower, so he didn't have to worry about being disturbed at all. Moreover, after he had comprehended something, he could come out and directly face the heavenly tribulation. He didn't have to worry about bringing disaster to others. Amidst the rolling thunderclouds, terrifying lightning interweaved, turning into bolts of lightning that were thicker than mountains, fiercely striking down on him. Clang the heavens and earth were furious. Cultivation was to seize the good fortune of the heavens and was not tolerated by the heavens and earth. As such, a great calamity had to descend to return this power to the heavens and earth. Ling Han didn't care at all. His physique was much stronger than his cultivation level, so he would be fine no matter how the heavenly tribulation struck him. However, in order to temper his body, he still took the initiative to shatter his godly bones, advancing toward a higher level under the heavenly tribulation. The divine demon sword had also swallowed the last piece of godly metal, completing a qualitative leap. It was also being tempered by the heavenly tribulation. Traces of iron slag were discharged from the body of the sword, and the sword itself became even brighter. It was like a pool of autumn water, and it emitted a supreme divine might. This is an immortal sword. Ling Han, on the other hand, was comprehending the power of the heavenly tribulation. Now that its power had reached a whole new level, he could see more of the natural laws of heaven and earth, and the operation of freedom. Half a day later, the heavenly tribulation dissipated. Ling Han wanted more. He hadn't comprehended enough yet. It was fine. If he went to freeload on the heavenly tribulations in the future, they would all be at this level. Therefore, there was no need to be anxious. If one time was not enough, he would do it twice. If 2 times was not enough, he would do it thrice. There would come a time when he would reach perfection. The divine demon sword trembled slightly, and it spun around Ling Han's body, exuding a frighteningly cold light. Ling Han possessed supreme defense and recovery ability, while the divine demon sword had reached the pinnacle in terms of offense. If he used the divine demon sword to attack him, would his defense be stronger, or would the divine demon sword be sharper? Ling Han had a sudden thought. Then, he felt that he was purely looking for abuse. What was there to think about? Good sword. A praise came from afar. It was a man in white, his face covered with a white cloth, and even his hair was wrapped in it. He didn't show his eyes, nostrils, or mouth at all, appearing incredibly strange. And his white clothes were also very loose, so it was impossible to determine whether he was a man or a woman from his figure. In fact, his voice was also very androgynous. It could be said that he was a man with some femininity, but could also be said to be a woman with a more heroic air. He stood on one leg, and there was a chain placed on his arched thigh. With a light pluck of his left hand, the sound of flowing water instantly sounded, like a spiritual spring flowing over a stream, very pleasing to the ear. This person was so strong. Ling Han thought. He couldn't tell this person's specific cultivation level, but he had a feeling that the other was very, very strong. The 2-realm prodigy gathering was getting closer and closer, and prodigies from various places also appeared like bamboo shoots after the rain. Ling Han smiled slightly and said, "It is indeed a good sword. Can you part with it?" The white-robed man asked. "I'm sorry, it's not for sale." Ling Han shook his head. The white-robed man plucked the strings, and weng, wung, wung, the sound of the chain tinkled. He paused and said, "Then let's make a bet. If I win, you will sell this sword to me." Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "Not interested." "Then how about a spar?" The white-robed man asked again. He didn't want to give up. Ling Han was also full of fighting spirit. He put away the divine demon sword and said, "All right." The white-robed man couldn't help but panic and asked, "Why did you put away your sword?" "I will naturally use it when I need to," Ling Han said with a smile. "Sir, how should I address you?" The white-robed man hesitated, and then said, "Faceless." Faceless, if covering one's face was called faceless, then should he be called bodiless? "I am Ling Han." Ling Han clenched his fists. His physical defense was invincible among those at the same cultivation level. Thus, he was also very fond of using his fists. The feeling of directly using his bare fists to beat his opponent down was very satisfying. Take this. Faceless plucked the strings of the chain. A sound wave actually materialized, forming a sharp sword that slashed at Ling Han. Ling Han couldn't help but look shocked. This attack was incredibly sharp, and actually made him feel an irresistible pressure. This wasn't because of his aura, but because this attack was indeed so terrifying. His opponent was at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier. No. Ling Han hurriedly used the star-plucking step to dodge. Even the consummate level wasn't this powerful. It wasn't like he hadn't fought such an opponent before. Pinnacle level. That's right, his opponent should have cultivated to the pinnacle level of the Sun-Moon tier. That was why he could possess such terrifying power. One had to realize that although Ling Han had advanced into the medium extreme, his actual battle prowess was only in the late stage of the high extreme. He hadn't even touched the line of the consummate level. But his opponent had cultivated to the pinnacle level. Whether it was cultivation level or battle prowess, how great was the gap between them? It was practically heaven and earth. Oh, that's right, you're only in the early stage of the medium extreme. Faceless nodded as if he had just realized this. I'll suppress my cultivation level and battle you at the same cultivation level. True enough, his aura immediately dropped. However, it only dropped to the middle stage of the medium extreme because he could only seal a complete sun and moon. It was impossible for him to seal half a sun and moon, so he was either in the middle stage of the medium extreme or the peak stage of the low extreme. Although Faceless was a fair person, he wouldn't be fair if he was at a disadvantage. Thus, in the choice of approaching Ling Han's cultivation level, he naturally chose to be one subminor level stronger than Ling Han. There was no such thing as absolute fairness in this world, so this was already a very ideal result. Faceless plucked the strings of his chin again. Another sound wave materialized and slashed at Ling Han. This time, Ling Han didn't dodge. Instead, he clenched his fist to meet the attack. Pung, the sword formed by the sound wave was forcibly shattered by Ling Han. He roared and charged at Faceless. Chapter 1274. Faceless plucked the zither even more quickly. Sound waves shot out one after another, transforming into countless weapons that attacked Ling Han. The entire sky was filled with a dense black mass of weapons. The cold light interweaved, and it was eerie and terrifying. However, Ling Han was unafraid. He had advanced another minor level, and his physique had also leaped up to the level of level 7 godly metal or above. Even if he took the attack of a consummate level cultivator head-on, he would only spit out a few mouthfuls of blood at most. Ling Han had suppressed his cultivation level, and was only at the middle stage of the medium extreme. Even if he possessed battle prowess surpassing 6 stars, it would still be extremely difficult for him to wound his physique. Pang, pang, pang. He continued to attack, shattering all the sound waves that came at him with his fists. He was getting closer and closer to Faceless. Faceless seemed somewhat surprised. This was a battle between equals, yet his opponent was actually so powerful. However, facing such a powerful opponent also stimulated his fighting spirit. His hands danced rapidly, and more sound waves shot out. This time, they were not swords, sabers, axes, and spears. Instead, they condensed into a gigantic humanoid figure. It was a giant that was at least 30 meters tall. It was fully armored and held a huge axe in its hand. However, upon closer inspection, it was a corpse that had long since turned into a skeleton. Ghost flames burned in its eye sockets, emitting an eerie chill. As soon as the skeleton giant appeared, it immediately brandished its axe and charged towards Ling Han. It raised the axe high up in the air, and the battle armor on its body glowed with light, forming numerous divine runes that looked incomparably real. It was clearly just a sound wave, so why did it feel so real? Ling Han was fearless, and raised his fist to meet the skeleton giant's axe. Pung, his fist landed on the skeleton giant's axe, and instantly, a terrifying shockwave rippled out, crushing the ground in the surroundings and causing great destruction. However, this was originally a barren land, so it didn't matter how much damage was caused. Shockingly, this skeletal giant actually managed to block Ling Han's attack. This surprised Ling Han. How could it be so powerful even though it was just a sound wave? King was a king after all. His methods were astonishing. Ling Han laughed heartily as he punched out repeatedly. Streaks of divine inscriptions appeared on his fists and arms, instantly raising his combat prowess to a whole new level. After a few more punches, the skeleton giant was smashed into pieces. However, Faceless only plucked the strings a few more times, and another skeleton giant was formed, charging toward him. There's no end to this. Ling Han shook his head. He couldn't just passively take a beating like this. He activated the star-plucking step, and his speed was as fast as the wind. He shook off the giant skeleton and headed straight for Faceless. Faceless let out a soft cry of surprise, as if he hadn't expected Ling Han's speed to be so fast. However, he was only slightly surprised. With a flip of his hand, he pulled out a thin sword from his zither and thrust it at Ling Han. He had hidden a sword in his zither, catching his opponent off guard. Ling Han already had no time to change his move, so he immediately gathered all his strength and blew out a breath of air. His figure instantly drifted backward like a falling leaf. Shwa! The sword sliced past, brushing past Ling Han's nose. If it had gone just a little bit further, Ling Han's nose would have been sliced off. Even if it hadn't been sliced off, blood would still have flowed out. Meanwhile, the skeleton giant had already charged over from behind Ling Han, and its axe slashed toward Ling Han's back. Faceless naturally wouldn't hold back, and he attacked from the front, giving Ling Han enough pressure. He and the skeleton giant launched a flurry of attacks at Ling Han. As expected, he was powerful. Ling Han sighed in his heart. This was the first time that he had been forced into such a sorry state in a battle between cultivators of the same cultivation level. However, even though they were battling at the same cultivation level, Faceless was actually a subminor realm higher than him. Moreover, Faceless was only suppressing his power. His control and utilization of the regulations of heaven and earth were still at the pinnacle level. Of course, there was a gap between them, and it was very large. However, how could there be a true fair battle in this world? If one's cultivation level was lower, what reason did Faceless have to give in to them? Being able to suppress one's cultivation level to battle was already very generous. Ling Han naturally wouldn't complain either. Since Faceless had used a weapon, he wouldn't hold back any longer. With a battle cry, he drew his divine demon sword. Murderous aura instantly soared into the sky. The divine demon sword had advanced by one level, and had advanced into the level of a level 6 god tool. Its might had naturally risen to another level, and wisps of heaven's might circulated around it, causing one's heart to tremble with fear. He slashed with his sword. The skeleton giant was instantly sliced in half. Sword might circulated, and the two halves of its body suddenly exploded. It was completely no match for Faceless' sword. What a good sword! Faceless didn't forget to praise as he slashed his sword over. Ding! The two swords clashed, and divine light dazzled. Faceless' sword was indeed a level 8 god tool, yet it couldn't completely suppress the divine demon sword. However, this sword had also been nurtured by him, so it was of the same lineage as Faceless' martial art. Added with the advantage of its cultivation level, its might wasn't inferior to the divine demon swords. It was just that it couldn't gain the upper hand. However, a level 6 god tool could rival a level 8 god tool. This was simply inconceivable. Faceless was definitely one of the most powerful young king tiers in the world. His battle prowess was incredibly terrifying. He had grasped a higher level of regulations of heaven and earth than Ling Han, and Ling Han's advantage lay in his freakishly powerful physique. His recovery ability was also freakishly powerful. Thus, one of them had more powerful attacks, while the other had more powerful defenses. Thus, they were locked in a stalemate. However, if this battle continued, it could be said that the final victor would definitely be Ling Han. This was because his defense was passive, and it would always be there. However, if Faceless was careless and allowed Ling Han to strike him, his injuries would be solid, and he wouldn't be weakened in the slightest. Haha. Faceless laughed, and took the initiative to stop the battle. He said, "In a battle of equals, I can't defeat you." "I can't defeat you either," Ling Han said. "If we were truly at the same cultivation level, you might be able to defeat me. After all, I can only suppress my power, and my grasp of regulations is far superior to yours," Faceless said honestly. He appeared to be open and aboveboard. However, he paused. That was just a sparring session. If it was a real life and death battle, it's hard to say who would emerge victorious. Ling Han nodded. How could geniuses like them not have trump cards? For example, he had yet to unleash his heaven's might. Even if he were to be severely injured, he would still have the indestructible true fluid to help him recover. In fact, there was even a 1% chance that he would be able to rise from the ashes. Of course, the most awesome thing was still the Black Tower. At worst, I'd just hide inside, and even a saint wouldn't be able to do anything if he came. The two of them felt like old friends at first sight, so they simply sat down and discussed the Tao. Although Faceless' realm was higher, Ling Han's thoughts were bold and imaginative, which gave him a lot of inspiration. It was the same for Ling Han. The reason was way too simple. The other party's cultivation state was higher. The more the two of them talked, the more congenial they became. They talked for 3 days straight, but they were still not done. They felt that they could talk for another 7 or 8 days. "Hee, I've finally found you," a voice filled with hatred rang out. Xie Donglai suddenly appeared, followed by 2 old servants and a middle-aged woman. Zhu Liyun. Chapter 1276. Faceless stood tall like a mountain, his white robes fluttering in the breeze, exuding a strong sense of pretentiousness. But he has the strength. Only those with strength could be called acting cool. Those without strength were just fools. Xie Donglai's expression finally changed drastically. His opponent's aura instantly became unfathomable. It was as if he were a god that could not be touched. How could this be? He was clearly only in the medium extreme, so how had he suddenly become a great elite? "How should I address you?" Xie Donglai asked solemnly. He didn't dare to underestimate this person anymore. Faceless smiled faintly and said, "You don't deserve to know." Xie Donglai was instantly enraged. He wasn't qualified to know Ling Han's name. He was the descendant of great General Xie, and he had the backing of an eternal river tier elite. Yet, he wasn't even qualified to know Ling Han's name. This guy is even crazier and more hateful than Ling Han. "Kill, kill, kill," he roared. He had been suppressing a bellyful of anger in Wolffang City. Earlier, he hadn't even been able to enter the Purple Moon barracks before he was chased out. Now, all of his anger had erupted. The 2 old servants also stood up. They put away the shock in their hearts and took out their weapons. Previously, they had only thought that Ling Han and Faceless were both at the medium extreme, so they would naturally disdain using god tools. However, now that Faceless had suddenly become a super elite, it was naturally impossible for them to remain so calm. "Brother Faceless, I'll leave it to you," said Ling Han with a smile. "All right," Faceless said indifferently, and he seemed to be very indifferent. This was indeed the case. He was in the pinnacle level of the Sun-Moon tier, and he could crush Xie Donglai and the others into dust with a single hand. Faceless Xie Donglai had naturally heard Ling Han call him that, but he didn't believe that there was really someone with that name. Thus, he had asked for Faceless' name only to be slapped in the face. Damn it, damn it, damn it. The 2 old servants joined hands and charged at Faceless. They actually had a joint attack formation. Using the yin-yang steps, one on the left and one on the right, one on the top and one on the bottom, they stacked their attacks together. The power was truly not weak. Faceless plucked the strings of his zither. A sound wave shot out, transforming into a spear that swept toward the 2 old men. Pung! The spear arrived. The 2 old men were completely unable to resist it, and they were both sent flying with a single strike. This Xie Donglai's body trembled slightly. The combination technique of his 2 old servants was extremely powerful. When they joined forces, even he would have to expend a lot of effort to defeat them. However, the other party had only played the zither once, and the 2 powerful old servants had been defeated. The pinnacle level of the Sun-Moon tier. he said in a trembling voice. Aside from this, he could not think of any other possibility. Faceless remained calm and said, "My mission is to make you stay obediently, so you'd better cooperate. Don't make me waste too much effort. I hate people who torment me. I always kill these kinds of people directly. Do you understand?" Xie Donglai's expression was incredibly ugly. He was the descendant of an eternal river tier elite, yet he was actually being threatened like this. How could he accept this? However, the other party had already made it clear that if he continued to pester them, he would be killed. He didn't doubt Faceless' killing intent in the slightest. This kind of person seemed to be amiable and calm, but when it came to killing, he would definitely not hesitate in the slightest. The three of them did not dare to move. Moreover, they had the reputation of great General Xie, and they also had some life-saving techniques. If the other party truly wanted to silence them, they would have a chance to escape. Meanwhile, Xie Donglai's mind raced. He wanted to rope in this supreme prodigy. If he could subdue him and make him his subordinate, his status in the Xie clan would definitely rise to a higher level. This was not impossible, as Faceless still did not know his true identity. So what if you're a prodigy? Can you cross the threshold of the eternal river tier? Brother Faceless, I'm Xie. Xie Donglai had just opened his mouth when a streak of sword chi slashed over and struck his mouth, directly knocking out all his teeth. Naturally, it also forced back the words that were about to come out of his mouth. "If you continue to spout nonsense, it won't just be your teeth," Faceless said coldly. Xie Donglai was both angry and embarrassed. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? However, he did not dare to speak at this moment. He only stared at Faceless, thinking that he would definitely take revenge for this. He definitely had to break through to the heavenly body tier as soon as possible and suppress others with his cultivation level. However, he really did not dare to speak anymore. Meanwhile, Ling Han was facing off against Zhu Liyun. "You want to kill me?" Zhu Liyun asked with a disdainful expression. She admitted that Ling Han was a prodigy of alchemy, but when it came to martial art, he was only at the low extreme. Medium extreme. Zhu Liyun was astonished. She remembered that when she had first met Ling Han, he had only been at the middle stage of the low extreme. However, after a short few months, he had already advanced to the medium extreme. This was far too terrifying. "Were all alchemists this awesome? I don't want to kill you," Ling Han said in a low voice. He hated immoral people like Faceless to the bone. Even if you advance rapidly, there's still a gap of 2 minor levels between us. This is absolutely impossible. Zhu Liyun said with a cold chuckle. If it was Faceless who attacked her, she would definitely wet her pants in fear. However, if it was Ling Han... Is that so? Ling Han drew out his divine demon sword. He wanted to kill this person in his strongest state. Zhu Liyun also drew out her god weapon. She would not relax and be careless just because her opponent's cultivation level was lower than hers. Arrogance was a bad habit of men. As long as she could achieve her goal, she would do anything. Moreover, this was a battle of life and death, so she naturally had to give it her all. As the saying went, even a lion had to use its full strength when hunting a rabbit. Ling Han did not waste any more words. He only had one word for this kind of evil woman: kill. He moved with his sword. The divine demon sword radiated with endless divine light, and flashes of sword chi swept out like flying dragons in the sky. They were also like flashes of lightning and rumbles of thunder, displaying their extreme might. Xie Donglai couldn't help but reveal a covetous look in his eyes. This sword was so powerful that it even made him feel a sliver of threat. If he could take it for himself, perhaps it could increase his battle prowess by a few notches. However, a demon was standing right in front of him, so how would he dare to move? However, although the divine sword was powerful, Zhu Liyun was not weak either. The main thing was that she had a clear advantage in terms of cultivation level. This was not something that a god tool could make up for. She brandished a large saber, and her attacks were bold and unrestrained. Like a shrew cursing in the streets, her aura was also extremely ferocious. With this attack, Ling Han was instantly suppressed. No one found this strange. There was a whole 11 stars difference between their cultivation levels. Even if Ling Han was a 10-star genius, he would only be able to bear the grudge. In reality, it was impossible to become a 10-star genius without reaching the pinnacle level. If one reached the pinnacle level, they would be able to suppress consummate-level cultivators. Thus, this was a dead end. Ling Han did not have any intention of fighting a drawn-out battle. He wanted to use his powerful physique and recovery ability to exhaust his opponent to death. Instead, he directly drew out the misty soul-capturing flower. Zhu Liyun's eyes instantly became dazed when she saw this. Then they became fiery. Poof! A sword light slashed past, and a head fell to the ground. Blood spurted into the sky. More refreshing reading on phones. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.